Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching third part of What If Naruto Was Trained by Jiraiya Early. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto stared blankly at the door before saying, "So this is room 301. Naruto tapped the door lightly to confirm that it was the real one, saying, "It doesn't look like much. We went through this much trouble for one lousy door?" Sasuke grinned. Only a few minutes had passed since his fight with Lee ended, but he had been urged to find more formidable opponents to challenge his skills. What fun would that be if we didn't have some sort of trouble? When he said, "Well, let's get going, ladies." Sasuke looked at Naruto. Naruto laughed. "Of course, after you second. Best." Naruto bowed and opened the door, allowing Sasuke to enter first. Sakura gave Naruto a gentle backslap and said, "Naruto, you shouldn't talk like that to Sasuke-kun." As he passed, Sasuke grinned. Naruto grinned. Sakura looked shocked but chose to ignore it. "You're right, it was my mistake calling him second best. I should refer to him to dead last." Since her Sasuke-kun was abandoning her, she had no time for his games and needed to catch up with him. As he watched her pursue her favorite dream, Naruto could only smirk. Squealing like a girl who just won the grand prize, Ino was clinging to Sasuke when he got inside. She kept hugging Sasuke, pressing herself against him, saying, "Sasuke-kun. I was wondering when you would show up. I have been waiting for you all this time." When Sakura saw what Ino was doing, her eyes widened. Not even yet had she had the opportunity to touch her Sasuke-kun in that way. She was also denied the opportunity to embrace him or even hold his hand. "Damn it, Ino.pig. Let go of my Sasuke-kun right now." Ino stuck her tongue out while glancing at Sakura. "You actually made it here as well, forehead girl." Sakura snarled. She refused to allow Ino to ridicule her in this way in front of her Sasuke-kun. In an attempt to push Ino away, she also leapt on Sasuke. When Sasuke noticed the approaching leap, he quickly vanished. He sighed. He was a living being with somewhat human emotions, not a toy for which people would fight. Sakura continued on without realizing that Sasuke was no longer there. Nothing else mattered to her. Killing Ino was her only objective. When Sakura began to approach and Sasuke vanished in front of her, Ino yelled in shock. When the girls collided, everyone in the room flinched. Almost everyone, actually. One individual was chuckling quietly in the room. Naruto initially laughed softly, but when he noticed Sakura standing up, he burst out laughing and collapsed on the ground. As he laughed, he gripped his sides to avoid the pain. He laughed and pointed to Sakura's head, saying, "Ahaha, forehead girl. What an ingenious name. Look at the size of that forehead." Ino couldn't resist and began to laugh too. Sakura noticed that her cheeks were flushed. Although she knew she was the center of attention, killing Naruto was the only thing she wanted to do at the moment besides hide. Make him bear her anger. Before becoming disinterested, everyone gazed at the scene for a long time. Before long, the room was filled with new conversations. When Naruto recognized the voice, he grinned and said, "Girls are so troublesome." To his friend, he turned and said, "This exam is more troublesome, Shikamaru. So how's it going?" Shikamaru gave a shrug. "It was a pain. Ino came over and dragged me and Choji out. This is a bigger turnout than I expected." Kiba walked over to the rest of the group and yelled, "Hey, you losers actually made it." Akamaru yelled back at his master, "Looks like all the rookies are all together again. Sasuke, you sly dog, you. You got those girls all to yourself." Sasuke sighed. Both Hinata and Shino greeted their classmates, the same pals they had attained academy graduation. Kiba noticed that Naruto was standing beside Shikamaru and Choji, having a lengthy conversation. Kiba grinned. He can exact revenge on him and humiliate him in front of everyone. This was the ideal scenario. His pride as his team's unofficial leader has suffered ever since. The dog barked in response to Kiba whispering something in Akamaru's ear, and then it ran to where Naruto was. Sakura and Ino gazed at Kiba in interest, wondering what was happening. "How do you know Naruto, Kiba?" As he responded to them, Kiba continued to watch Akamaru. He was still upset with the blonde for the humiliation he had endured at his hands, so he said, "Let's just say that I have a debt that I have to settle with Naruto." Hinata said softly, "Kiba-kun, you shouldn't do that." She remembered their most recent encounter with Naruto. She was to blame for Kiba's injuries. She didn't want to see a recurrence of that incident. "Shush, quiet down or you'll miss what Akamaru is about to do." The group silently observed the small dog's movements, anticipating his next move. Shikamaru let out a sigh. Why do you think they're staring at us for? Choji shrugged, still munching on his chips. Who knows? Kiba's been acting a bit weird lately. From the corner of Naruto's eye, he saw the dog approach. What is that dog doing? As he noticed Akamaru attempting to approach him stealthily and blending his footsteps with the background noise, Naruto mused to himself. Kiba rubbed his palms together, waiting for the moment. Even Sasuke became intrigued as they all watched the dog approach Naruto more and more. Kiba yelled when he got close enough to see Akamaru. Now Akamaru. The dog leapt to his feet and snarled at Naruto. Kiba began to laugh and fell to his knees. Who's tough now, loser? When Kiba saw a kunai to his neck, his eyes widened and he asked, "Are you sure about that, Kiba?" He felt the icy metal against his neck as he looked down. Everyone tensed up, hesitant to move. What? How come you're not laughing now, dog? Breath. Nah. Naruto. The dog barked in surprise as the Naruto that Akamaru had bitten vanished in smoke, shocking everyone. After a moment of shock, Shikamaru decided it was too much trouble to comprehend what had happened. Didn't I warn you last time that if we crossed paths like this, I would kill you? Kiba gasped. He was frightened to speak because he sensed a tremendous murderous aura behind him. A voice said, "You rookies are making too much noise." A silver-haired teenager with glasses stood next to them, and Naruto said, "I think you better release him if you know what's good for you, rookie." The teenager looked at Naruto and said in an authoritative tone, "You guys are making too many enemies right now. I'll give you guys a piece of advice. Remove the sword and be quiet." Naruto glared back, then took his weapon away. TCH. In order to check on Kiba, the girls hurried over. "Next time, dog. Face, next time." With a low growl, Kiba was ready to charge Naruto, but Ino intervened. With her eyes, she warned him, and Kiba took it slowly. Naruto recognized the Hite.8 and approached the teenager. Naruto paused and said, "So you're a Leaf Genin." He didn't care that he didn't know the boy's name. "Thanks for the warning, but I don't care. Next time you have some advice to give, do yourself a favor and shove it up your own ass." After passing the boy, Naruto was left gazing into a crowd of other genins. Naruto grinned. Naruto concluded his lengthy speech by putting his hands firmly on the desk. "I don't give a shit who you guys are, but if you want to take me on, you better be risking your life. Remember my name, Uzumaki Naruto, because when I wipe the floor with you, you'll be begging me to take you as my apprentice." As Sakura watches her teammates simply condemn them to being targets, she gasps. The Dobi was attracting too much attention to them, so Sasuke scowled. Is it impossible for him to learn his place and to stop talking? Sakura was prodded on the arm by Ino. Sakura lowered her head, feeling the anguish and suffering caused by Naruto's action, and said, "Hey forehead girl. Are you sure Naruto's normal?" Naruto kept talking until he was approached by another powerful genin. The genin retreated in terror as Naruto gave him a fierce look. Naruto walked back to his team after leaving his makeshift stage. The older boy gave Naruto a curious look. He rejoined their group after following Naruto back. The man gave a small applause. That was some display, Naruto-kun. Naruto gave the boy a quick look. The boy retreated in shock and asked, "Did anyone tell you that you have the scent of a snake?" What? Sakura gave Naruto a swift slap across the head. "First you make us targets for everyone and now you're rude to the only person who was nice to us." Naruto merely grinned. "My actions were clear. I'm just weeding out the weak. The weak won't survive in this exam." His words caused Sakura to recoil. The very fears she was attempting to overcome had just been evoked by his words. The blonde was telling the truth, and she knew it. As she realized she was the weakest member of this team, she began to feel more anxious. He gave her a half-cocked smile as though he understood her anxieties and said, "But don't worry, this exam requires us to pass as a team, so just shut up and enjoy the ride." Sakura experienced a strange sensation in her stomach, as if she were about to meet her demise. She dismissed it, assuming Naruto was merely playing a practical joke on her. Naruto's gaze shifted to the boy who had a snake odor. "What's your name? It seems like you know our names but we don't know yours." The boy grinned and pushed up his glasses. "My name is Kabuto and I can give you rookies some pointers." Sasuke scowled. This new kid had moved into his territory and was acting as though he was the only one who could help them pass, which annoyed him. Sakura inquired, "How many times have you taken the exam, Kabuto-san?" She concluded that he must have taken the test more than once because he was giving them advice. Kiba said, "So you know everything there is to this exam, huh?" Kabuto said, "Yes, I do, and with these cards here," before taking a stack of cards out of his pocket. These are special info cards that display the information that I collected over the years. Sakura picked up the highest card and flipped it over. When she could see nothing on the other side, she became perplexed. Why is the card blank if you collected information? She asked, staring at Kabuto in confusion. All the boy could do was smile. The reason is because these cards only react with my chakra. Go ahead, name some people and I'll give you their details. Sasuke inquired. Do you have information about each person here? He wanted to learn more about some individuals. Individuals he thought were deserving of his time. Kabuto gave a nod. Just give me the names and I'll give you the information. When Sasuke called out the last name, everyone looked shocked. Sabaku no Gaara, Rock Lee and Uzumaki Naruto. The other members of the group were thinking the same thing. Shouldn't teammates be acquainted by now? Naruto gave a snort. That should come as no surprise. Nobody ought to know anything about him. He had returned to the village not long ago. Kabuto looked through his deck and took out a card, saying, so you know their names. It makes it a lot easier. He put some chakra on the card and held it up. First up is Sabaku no Gaara. Originally from Suna. His mission experience composed of 8 C rank missions and 1 B rank. He returned from all his missions unharmed and unscratched. Kabuto whirled at the details. Wow, he must be good. Sasuke scowled. He was aware of the red-haired kid's strength, but it's another matter entirely to be able to complete a B mission without suffering any injuries. Kabuto shuffled the first card back into his deck and then pulled out the next one, saying, next up is Rock Lee. He read the card aloud and used some chakra. Rock Lee. He is just 1 year older than you guys and has completed 20 D rank missions and 11 C rank missions. Oh, what's this? He has no talent for ninjutsu or genjutsu but is extraordinary in the field of taijutsu. He is praised for being a skilled genin and this is also his first time taking the exam along with his teammates Tenten and Neji. Kabuto reshuffled the card back into the deck while Sasuke nodded. He had personal knowledge of Lee's skills. The rookie 9 edged closer as Kabuto reached for the last card. They were all curious about the meaning behind Naruto's tale. Kabuto became conscious of the intimacy he was gaining. He scooted back to give himself a little breathing room and said, Finally Uzumaki Naruto. Kabuto took a moment to process the card, then said, first time genin taking the exam and was trained by Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin. Sasuke was a little annoyed by the information and asked, is that all? It was not enough for him to hear 2 sentences. Kabuto shrugged his shoulders and put the cards away, saying, I guess so. The other rookies stared at Naruto, astonished and in awe of the boy. Naruto grinned. He turned around and walked to a corner, leaning against it and closing his eyes, saying, don't be jealous now. Ino asked right away, did you guys know that he was trained by the legendary Jiraiya? Sakura gave a headshake. Comparing their notes on their knowledge of Naruto, the girls started their own discussion, saying, we didn't know. All we knew was that he is really strong. In contrast, Sasuke was lost in his own world. Did someone that strong train him? That is utter nonsense. He is not in need of it. Sasuke glanced at Naruto, who was leaning silently against the corner, and said, I need it. I'm 1 step closer to defeating him if I defeat him. Naruto had a rare conversation with his inner self in his little corner. You fox. I have a question for you. Naruto and his tenant have discussed a number of topics over the years. The two maintained a covert, intermittent relationship. For a moment, Naruto waited to see if his question would be answered. When nothing appeared, Naruto focused intently and entered his mind, a place he hadn't been to in a long time. Naruto entered a room with a massive cage after passing the well-known path. Naruto grinned. All of this seemed too good to be true. He could do anything he wanted to the fox, who was sleeping soundly. A loud sound reverberated from Naruto's kick as he ran up and kicked the bars. Naruto waited for his answer while standing in front of the cage. Abruptly, enormous claws smashed into the cage, inches from leaving Naruto's face scarred. Hello, fox. Kyuubi snarled. Insolent brat, how dare you disturb my slumber? Naruto chuckled. You didn't answer me so I came here personally. Withdrawing his claws, Kyuubi gazed at the boy. Something about him was different. Kyuubi took a whiff of the air. Tell me boy, why did you change your ways? Naruto gave a shrug. We're not here to catch up fox. We're here to answer my question. Kyuubi let out a loud laugh. I see, it's because of them that you changed. Pitiful human. Naruto's expression was one of shock. How did you? Kyuubi chuckled once more. You forget. I live in your body. I do more than give you chakra. I am another version of you as you are another version of me. Your memories are my memories, foolish mortal. There is nothing that you can hide from me. Naruto briefly closed his eyes before opening them. Is that a fact, you overgrown furball? Kyuubi was taken aback by the boy's altered demeanor. His eyes were the primary difference, though his tone was slightly different as well. They were piercing, displaying more aggression and intelligence than his sardonic, joyful eyes. This one was riskier and more remote. What you saw was me trying to adapt, trying to learn, but since you wanted the real me, you got it. After a moment of wondering, Kyuubi realized what was going on with the boy. I see, human. Your soul is torn between the old and new you, each struggling for dominance. Naruto was the next to chuckle. Foolish demon. There is no battle between me. We are one as we have always been. There is only you and me, furball. Now you will answer me. Why does that kid reek of snakes? Kyuubi let out a roar. How dare you, human? I am the mighty Kyuubi. Naruto interrupted him. That's trapped in a mere mortal's stomach. Once more, Kyuubi extended his claws, but Naruto was still standing there and the claws did not reach all the way. If I wasn't trapped in here, mortal, I would devour your soul completely. Naruto gazed at the enormous creature. Who else smells like snake, furball? Kyuubi snarled and responded. The fox spat out the response, Orochimaru. The last of the Sanins. That kid has the same scent as him. Naruto bowed and grinned. Naruto turned around and started to leave, saying, thanks, fuzzball. Wait. Wondering what else the fox might desire, Naruto came to a halt. Be careful, brat. He's a Sannin for a reason. Naruto waved his hand in the air while grinning. Naruto felt himself leaving his other world, and when he opened his eyes, the images before him were unsettling. Don't worry. I'm always careful. He somehow became the focus of attention, attracting everyone's attention. He glanced around quickly, wondering what was going on. Everyone in the room was staring at him, and there was silence. Naruto cursed himself in his head. While in the other world, he must have unintentionally let his barriers down. He noticed Hinata, Sakura, and Ino looking directly into his face as though he was wearing something. Can you guys stop staring at me? It's really rude. Startled, the girls leapt up. Hinata turned her head away, her face flushed. Sakura gave Naruto a slap. Baka, what happened? Naruto gave a shrug. I don't know. Naruto shoved Sakura aside and turned to leave when Ino took hold of his arm. Wait, Naruto. When Naruto swiftly turned his head, Ino noticed those icy, vacant eyes. Ino felt her legs weak, her chest heavy, and she had trouble breathing. Ino.san. I don't like people touching me like that. She lost her grip instantly and collapsed to her knees. Naruto kept walking until he came across the individual he was hoping to see. Kabuto was experiencing anxiety. It was an unusual sensation. He sensed the aura simply emanating from the boy. He made an effort to appear normal, but it was difficult when someone was watching him intently. As Naruto approached Kabuto, everyone watched. Sasuke caught Naruto as he was closing in. Get out of my way. Sasuke blocked the way by standing there. No, we want an explanation, Naruto. What the hell happened back there? You never had that much power before. Naruto snarled. He had no time for this pointless conversation. Naruto was about to push Sasuke aside when he noticed another person approaching. My personal business is none of your concern. I'll make this clear, get out of my way. Another voice added, no, Kiba took Sasuke's place. We're not moving unless you tell us what the hell happened, Naruto. Naruto tightened his jaw. A massive barrier stood in his way, and his target was directly in front of him. There was not much time. Naruto wasn't certain what had happened, but allowing them to speak is the quickest way to resolve the situation. Look, why don't you tell me what you saw and I'll tell you what happened? That was the first time he had ever lost control of his chakra. Instead of second guessing yourself, it might be worthwhile to hear their opinions. Sasuke looked at him doubtfully and then nodded. Everyone waited to hear the boy's reaction after explaining what had happened to Naruto. Uncertain of how to respond, Naruto paused. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, a large man wearing a trench coat burst through the door. All of the focus that was on Naruto was diverted to the new man, and the people in room 301 fell silent. Naruto thanked the man in silence for his timely interruption. I was assured by Ero Sennin that I wouldn't lose control in this way. I hate that man and his behavior. Later, I'll deal with him. The man's intense gaze caused everyone in the room to recoil. The man entered the room, insulting each genin as he went, and said, okay, you worthless maggots, get in your seats. I am your instructor for the first part of the exam. My name is Ibiki Morino. Remember it well. Are you guys waiting for a fancy invitation or something? Get into your seats now, you idiots. Everyone stared in confusion at the man. Neither the door nor any other part of the room had any signs. Ibiki chuckled. This was no ordinary laugh. It was a heartless laugh from an indifferent person. He shouted, raising his arms. Kai. Names and seat numbers were now written on the blank blackboard. The Genins didn't even notice it. They appeared shocked. You're disqualified if you're not in your seat within 10 seconds. Ibiki yelled at the Genins. You can't do that, another courageous grass Genin shot back. The other Chunin smiled and said, you miserable worm. This is my room, and if you don't like to, get out. 8 seconds, people. In an attempt to find their names, the Genins ran wildly to the board. Naruto let out a sigh. These Genins were so stupid, it would do more harm than good to snoop on one another. They would have attacked this by forming lines or using their surroundings if they were intelligent. He leapt to the ceiling before making his way to the board. Ibiki saw the young man. He grinned. The boy was intelligent and made the most of his surroundings. 3 seconds. Ibiki scowled as the remaining time expired. All of the Genins arrived at their seats in the allotted time. He gave his assistants the all clear to begin distributing the papers. Okay, short and simple, so I don't waste my time with you insolent brats. This is a paper exam and you are to answer all 10 questions. The 10th question will be given after an hour into the exam. With clipboards, which were likely there to keep an eye on them, all of the Chunins were seated at the ends of the rows when Naruto glanced around the room. Ibiki quickly turned the paper over and took a quick look at the questions after he had finished outlining the rules. He chuckled to himself. He was unable to respond to these inquiries. They were just too damn difficult. Every Genin was still examining the papers when he looked around the room again, but some had already started writing. Suddenly he had a thought. Trigonometry equations didn't matter to ninjas. What mattered to them was how they completed the task. Most likely, they were testing their ability to handle this circumstance. He watched as Neji and Hinata swiftly triggered their bloodline and began looking around the room. Sasuke was copying movements with the Sharingan activated. He observed that other teams were beginning to grasp the actual significance of this test. He noticed that Hinata was attempting to get his attention when he heard a tapping sound next to him. When he saw what she was saying to him, he grinned. Move your hand if you can understand what I'm saying. Hinata smiled slightly as Naruto swiftly moved his left hand. In the hopes that it would help the boy beside her, she gave him her responses again. An hour or so later, Ibiki grinned to himself. The first hour had seen a sharp decline in the number of Genins. Although this was a good beginning, the best was still to come. It was time for the ultimate verdict, to determine whether these Genins possessed the moral character and intelligence to advance. Okay, you trash. It is time for the last question, but before I ask you the last question, I have to ask you this question first. You guys must decide if you want to take the question or not. If you decide to take it and fail, you are doomed to stay a Genin forever. He emphasized the phrase forever. Genins began to writhe in their seats, giving way under his weight. You can't do that, exclaimed a Genin. Ibiki grinned. This is my exam. This is how I do it. If you don't like it, tough shit, kid. You lucked out when you got me for an examiner. Uncertain of what to do, the Genin quiets down. Naruto started to tremble. There was an amazing aura emanating from the man. In the blink of an eye, he could spread a sense of doom and despair. He made an effort to hold his hand down. A few more hands sprang up before he could respond. One by one, Genins raised their hands to give up as he turned around. If you quit now, you are free to take the exam again, but if you take the last question and fail, well, it sucks to be you worthless trash. Ibiki was shocked to see the previous child standing up when he turned around and said, Screw you, Ibiki. I won't run away from your damn challenge. I faced worse challenges before. I dealt with worse situations than you could imagine. If I run away here, all I'd done before would have been for nothing. I will take this exam and pass it. Naruto concluded his remarks by slamming his hand. His heart was thumping. He didn't know why he did that. Ibiki scowled. The child simply erased all of the doubt and hopelessness he had engendered. He had no idea who this child was, but he was unique. He looked around the room briefly. 32 teams. He nodded to his fellow examiners, informing them that he was passing them and that this was the final cut. In that case, you all pass. Naruto's jaw dropped a little. What? He was baffled by what had just transpired. What the hell did you just say? What about the 10th question? Ibiki laughed. There is no 10th question, or if you want to count the question I just asked as the 10th question. This exam is based on your ability to gather information. Those who fail to gather the correct information will cause the mission to end up in failure. Information is everything when completing a mission. How much information you have depends on the success or failure of a mission. Ibiki grabbed his bandana after giving the Genins a fierce look. He took it off carefully and watched their faces. He heard a number of people in the room give a startled gasp. This is what happens when you are playing with information. When you get caught, torture by any means is used to get that information out of you. Being ninjas is not a game. You guys are putting the lives of your teammates in your hands when you do missions. Lives cannot be bought and it certainly cannot be toyed with. The point of this exam is to see whether or not you guys are ready for this level of ninja yet. Those that fail to see the true meaning of this test does not deserve the rank of Chunin. We have been observing you carefully. Those that fail to conceal themselves while cheating are not mature enough to advance yet. Ibiki grinned as he placed the bandana over his head. Part 1 of the Chunin exam is now complete. Ibiki was just about to declare the conclusion of the first section when a figure inexplicably burst through the window, scattering glass all over the place. She grinned and said to the Genins, "All right, maggots. My name is Anko Mitarashi, and I am your proctor for the second part of the exam," but got no response. Anko counted the teams while surveying the area. Ibiki, you realize you're passing 32 teams here. Ibiki gave a nod. We have some good material this year. Anko smiled eerily at the Genins. Don't worry, I guarantee that I'll cut those teams in half. Sakura gave a little squeak. This wasn't good. I don't want to fail here. She attempted to look back with assurance, but she lacked the bravery to do so. Naruto was caught off guard. What a grand entrance. He never imagined that someone would arrive in such a manner. He grinned. That was awesome. It was something he would remember. One thought ran through the minds of the other passing teams. Why are so many strange people in one room? When there was complete silence, Anko coughed a little. Ibiki shrugged as she leapt out the window, saying, "Okay. Meet me at Area 44 now." He began to leave the Genins to their own devices and said, "Just follow her." As the teams arrived gradually, Anko stood in front of a tent and grinned at them. She gestured behind her and said, "Congratulations on passing Part 1. Standing behind me is Part 2. The area behind her caught everyone's attention. The sight of such a forest as this astounded them. There was not a glimmer of light emerging from the forest. She could sense their anxiety and fear growing as she said, as the name states, "This is the forest of death. Before we proceed, I will be handing out release forms that will release me and Konoha from responsibility in case that you die in there." She grinned. Nothing could make your day more cheerful than frightening Genins. She turned around and heard a blonde kid talking to his teammates. "It doesn't look that tough. Are you scared, Pinky? Uchiha here can protect you." Anko was beaming. At this point, she extends her invitation. She vanished without a word. Sasuke ignored Naruto's pitiful attempts to carry on a normal conversation, as he always did. He watched the other teams too much. He didn't pay attention to Sakura's struck expression. Sakura became aware that Sasuke's focus was not on her, but rather elsewhere. Damn it, Naruto. Look at what you done. Now Sasuke. Kun's ignoring me. Naruto shook his head in defeat, saying, "TCH, lucky bastard. He ignored you first, now I can't." Naruto's eyes expanded as he said, "It's not just a walk in the park, rookie." Before something cold nicked his cheek, he felt something warm breathe down his neck. He noticed purple hair when he turned his head. Naruto said icily, "Greetings, second examiner. Mitarashi-san was it?" Anko licked her kunai clean of the blood. Anko grinned at Sakura and said, "You're an interesting kid. You don't seem afraid of me like your other teammates. Did I scare you, kid?" Sakura shook her head slowly. When she actually saw a woman emerge behind Naruto and injure him on the cheek, she nearly screamed. Anko took a look at the final Uchiha. "There is more to the exam than you think." Anko instantly relaxed, wondering how the boy knew that. "If you don't mind me asking, why do you have the scent of a snake?" she asked. "Oh, so you don't deny it." Naruto approached and gave Anko a close inspection. Anko's entire demeanor changed as he gazed at the boy. He was just a kid before, but now he was different. Her mind was screaming for her to just run and get out of there as quickly as possible. In an attempt to face this looming fear, Anko responded to the boy slowly. "I don't answer to some brat." Naruto looked at her solemnly. His tone was cold but firm, intent on getting answers. "I just want some information. There are a few people here who reek of snakes. What is your relation to all this?" he asked. Anko frowns. She was really annoyed by the brat, and she was not permitted to hurt any of the competitors. Naruto paused in front of Anko, anticipating a response. Look, I didn't want to resort to this, but you're leaving me with no other options. As Anko watched Naruto move his hands toward his back, the boy flinched from something striking him halfway through. Naruto looked over at Sasuke. What the hell was that, Teme? Sasuke gave his teammate a scowl. Are you trying to get us disqualified? Naruto considered it. His gaze returned to Anko, and he said, I guess not. Don't leave town now. I just want to talk. Anko blinked. Was she in danger from this child? A half-daughter size child? Anko laughed as he made his way back to the tent, saying, oh hell no, just don't die until then, Gaki. As he watched his prey's retreating figure, Naruto sighed, oh smooth Sasuke. Do you always have to get in my way? If you keep this up, it may get you killed in the future. There's nowhere for her to hide. He will eventually locate her. For the first time, Anko managed to calm herself. There are jobs to be done and Genins to fail, she told herself in her head, so she should return to finish. Listen up, people. I want each team to walk into the tent one by one to hand us your forms, and while in there, we will be handing you either a heaven or earth scroll for the exam. Anko glanced around, then went on. Anko entered a tent as a nearby Chunin began guiding various teams into separate tents. The goal of this section of the exam is to retrieve the other scroll. If you have the heaven scroll, you have to get the earth and vice versa. Once you have the scrolls, you must reach the center tower in 5 days or your team won't qualify. It has to be with your team or else you guys won't qualify as well. The Chunin took Team 7's forms and gave them a scroll of heaven when it was their turn in the tent. After taking the scroll, Naruto spun it around in his fingers. So who's going to carry it? Sasuke gave a shrug. Naruto nodded and put the scroll in his pocket, saying, you can carry it for all I care. After leaving the tents, Team 7 moved close to the gate entrance to get a clear view of it. Anko began mentally counting down as she watched the nervous teams begin, saying, okay. When I say start, the gates will open and the exam will begin. Good luck to you all. She yelled for the guards to open the gate when the mental timer struck 1. Go. Every one of the 32 teams that were there ran into Area 44. Leading them into a different area of the forest was Naruto. I think we should go straight for the tower. Sasuke scowled. Why are we running away? Are you afraid, Dobi? Naruto let out a sigh. Try to keep up, Sasuke. She said all teams must report to the tower, so the only way they can get into the tower is if they have the scrolls. Do you see where I'm going with it? Sasuke gave a head nod. Not a bad idea, Dobi. Only the strong will make it to the tower. Naruto gave a nod of agreement. That's the plan. Naruto was relieved to see the scroll and touched it once more. He let out a sigh. This forest didn't feel right to him. Something else was happening. Naruto yelled, Naruto, keep up, as he noticed his teammates had already left the area. Ah, come on guys, he exclaimed, gathering some chakra before launching himself off, determined not to be the last person to depart. Ku. Sasuke Uchiha, I finally located you. A pair of eyes cautiously scanned the area. An evil smile spread across the face of a figure that emerged from the tree. Sasuke-kun, don't let me down. She watched as the young Genins hurried away without noticing her. Sasuke gestured to an open space below and said, let's take a break here. We can't afford to be too tired. The other members of the group gave a nod of agreement. Wearing themselves out before they get to the tower is pointless. Naruto twisted in midair and jumped away, saying, hey guys, go ahead, I have to do something. With a sigh, Sakura said, geez, that guy. Every time, Naruto departed without providing an explanation or anything. She sometimes wishes she could simply beat him until he picked up some manners. Sakura turned around and saw Sasuke handing her a nutrient bar, saying, here. She grinned. Thank you, Sasuke-kun. The group turned around and saw Naruto approaching with food in his hands. Hey guys, want some food? They asked. He smiled as he offered the food, saying, I got plenty, don't be shy. Just as Sakura reached for one, Sasuke abruptly pulled her back and raised a kunai. Where is Naruto, you fake? Fake? Sakura asked, her expression bewildered. Sasuke-kun, what are you doing? That's Naruto in front of us. Sasuke gave a headshake. He threw his kunai directly at the imposter Naruto, saying, look at him. His weapon holster is on the wrong leg and the real Naruto wouldn't be this kind. The phony Naruto easily captured the kunai and destroyed the illusion, saying, ku. Very observant Sasuke-kun. When the smoke had cleared, a woman was in front of them. She gave the two Genins a quick look. I have come for you, Sasuke-kun. She grinned and squinted her eyes. She pulled out her scroll so they could confirm, saying, I know you have the Heaven Scroll and I happen to have the Earth Scroll. She began swallowing the scroll and laughed. You want our scroll, right? Sakura let out a gasp. That is really repulsive. With icy eyes, the woman clutches her face and exclaims, now. The fight for the scrolls begins with our life. Sakura and Sasuke were immobile as they froze in place. Their minds race with visions of their demise. Before grinning, the woman pulled out a pair of kunais, each of which lightly touched her skin. She threw the kunais at their head, saying, this is the end for you. Sasuke saw that the kunais were headed directly for them. Gosh, it moved. Go, he stabbed his knee with the kunai he had taken from his pouch. Sensing that his body was reacting to the pain, he lunged for Sakura and managed to push her aside. In his eyes, he could feel the Sharingan spinning quickly, as though it were coming to life. The infamous Uchiha bloodline was visible to the woman. The renowned Sharingan, she said with a smile. The moment she gets her hands on it will not be long. Sasuke ended up on the ground, gazing at the adversary. He couldn't stop thinking about their deaths, and she was on a completely different plane. He observed the object getting closer and closer. The intent to kill. It's too much. She grinned. It was too simple. She used her long tongue to catch it. As Sasuke prepared some hand seals before yelling, she thought, this is so disappointing. Kaden. Housenka no Jutsu. Sasuke spit a number of fireballs directly at the woman. After swerving and scanning the area, the woman discovered that her target had escaped. She smiled. Sasuke grabbed Sakura and took off running, saying, this is interesting. Running and keeping the psychopath woman at a sufficient distance. We are unable to defeat her. Naruto, where are you? In the meantime, somewhere else in the forest. Naruto leapt from another branch and exclaimed, damn it, why are there so many snakes here? He has so far identified 3 snakes that have attempted to consume him. Naruto followed his teammates through the forest, saying, I knew I shouldn't have split up from them. Naruto noticed evidence of a battle as he returned to the location where he had left his teammates. It appears that Sasuke had to employ a Kaden Jutsu. Naruto searched the area for a sign. He saw a pair of footprints trailing behind the other 2. Sensing that his teammates would require his assistance, he immediately set out to pursue them. And it also looks like they may have another guest soon. In an attempt to reach his teammates in time, Naruto increased his speed. He heard explosions and fighting as he approached. He remained in the shadows as he arrived, attempting to observe what was going on. Sasuke might or might not have been able to handle the situation. Sasuke was going to beg the woman, look, if we give you the scroll, will you leave us alone? Perhaps if he gave it to her, she would release us. The woman instantly threw more kunais at them after saying, I don't think so, Sasuke-kun. With little chakra left to move, Sasuke stood there. Fuck it. I can't pass away here. I'm so far away. His body was not responding to his commands, but the Sharingan in his eyes was giving the approaching projectiles a fierce glare. Go, damn it, go. Sakura screamed as she closed her eyes and waited for her Sasuke-kun to scream in agony. She noticed that her Sasuke-kun was still standing and gazing at the ground when she heard nothing. The woman scowled. There was another person present. She attempted to check the area to see if any reinforcements had shown up. The woman's eyes widened as she said, you smell like a snake. A forceful kick to the stomach greeted her as she turned around. It launched her into a tree. Naruto got back to his feet and approached his teammates. Before Sasuke jolted out of it, Naruto saw a dazed expression in his eyes and asked, you okay, scaredy cats? Just rest for a while. This fight is beyond your comprehending. Waiting for the woman to reappear, Naruto stood in front of Sasuke. A woman emerged from the floor and said, Ku, I don't know who you are, but you're pretty good to get a kick off me. As he gazed at the woman, Naruto considered his options in silence. Don't get so full of yourself. You really smell for a lady. She scowled. The woman melted into the ground and said, you're a rude child. In an attempt to predict where she would strike next, Naruto narrowed his eyes. No, in front, left, and right. In the rear, Naruto swiftly spun around, shoved Sasuke aside, and took the blow intended for Sasuke. Flipping away, Naruto examined his opponent slowly. The woman laughed. Very nice. You managed to push Sasuke-kun out of the way and dodge at the last second, taking minimum damage. With haste, Naruto removed a scroll and smeared it with blood. Naruto swiftly grabbed hold of the weapon as the scroll vanished in a cloud of smoke. With the sword securely grasped in his hand, Naruto rushed forward. Leaping into the air, he was able to see his opponent clearly. Die! Naruto landed a vertical cut, but a kunai stopped it. With a grunt, Naruto attempted to push harder, hoping to split the blade in two. Naruto took note of her facial expression. She wasn't even attempting to defend herself. Winds dispersed from the area due to the force of the impact, indicating that the attack was carried out with considerable force. She gave Naruto a disinterested glance. Is this all you got? With a sly smile, Naruto said, not by a long shot. He then relaxed one grip on the sword and turned the blade around, slashing upward in the direction of the face. The woman started to turn into mud as soon as Naruto touched her. Naruto turned around and discovered duplicates of the same woman, asking, Bushin, no matter how many of you there are, I'll still kill you. Naruto eased into a comfortable position, holding the Tenro upright and arching his arm back. Regardless of which clone was the real one, Naruto rushed forward in a split second. He will simply cut through. Shiranui.Ryu. Satsujin Ken. Suzaku. Naruto successfully carried out the attack by running directly into the clones. Naruto faced the clones as he stood there. All but one of the clones he heard making their sounds vanish. The woman was simply standing there grinning when he turned around. There was something strange about the wound, Naruto thought. Although the wound wasn't very deep, it ought to have been so that blood could seep out. The woman stood there, dusting herself off, and said, That's a very interesting attack you have. The woman took a direct hit and survived, and Naruto's eyes widened. Incredibly so. The woman saw that she had a cut on her face. She put her hands to it and grinned. Naruto was shocked by what she did next. Her face was torn off. Her actions took Naruto by surprise. Seeing someone do that to their own face made him want to throw up. Upon closer inspection, he saw that it was merely a mask covering the face. You, Naruto gasped as he recognized the visage. Orochimaru, we finally meet. Orochimaru chuckled. Naruto laughed and said, It seems that you know my name, boy. He had spent so much time with Ero Sennin that he was familiar with their tales of success and failure. Here, he was aware that he was outclassed. He had no choice but to take everyone and flee. When Naruto noticed Orochimaru vanish, he stopped flipping through some hand seals. Naruto looked around in an attempt to locate the snake. Then he heard a scream, probably from Sakura. With haste, he turned to see Orochimaru glaring over them. The man stretched out his neck and bit the boy, saying, Take this as my parting gift, Sasuke.kun. Sasuke let out a cry of pain as he felt the bite. Even though Naruto ran as quickly as he could, it was too late. Trying to numb the pain with his hands on his neck, Sasuke let out a howl of agony. No, Sasuke. Naruto screamed as he rushed forward to capture Orochimaru instead. As he charged forward, he unwittingly let some of the demon's chakra seep into his own. From Naruto, Orochimaru sensed a second chakra source. The chakra signature was instantly recognizable to him. Orochimaru rushed forward and met Naruto halfway, saying, Well, it seems like the tales of the Yondaime were untrue. You certainly have defied the odds. Orochimaru was not hit by Naruto's punch. Orochimaru grinned and ducked under. Flashing through some hand seals, the man yelled, Sasuke.kun won't be the only one who will be receiving a gift today. Orochimaru slammed his fingers into Naruto's stomach and threw the boy back into a tree, saying, Gogyo Fuin. With a moan of agony, Naruto sensed that the fox's chakra had left his body. He attempted to conjure more Yuki chakra but was unsuccessful. He was unable to see straight as his vision began to waver. Naruto quickly lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. Orochimaru grinned. It wasn't difficult to deal with the brat. He approached Sasuke once more. Sakura stood trembling in front of him as he glanced at her. You can't stop me, little girl. Sasuke.kun will seek me out. He is an avenger who will do anything to gain power, even if it means that he'll sell his soul to achieve it. Orochimaru chuckled and then disappeared. Incapable of moving, Sakura attempted to relax. She noticed that Naruto was also unconscious when she turned to face the other area. They were fortunate to be alive. This guy easily defeated Naruto and even Sasuke.kun. Before she started crying, she could feel her heart pounding. She was in the middle of a dangerous forest. Her teammates were unconscious and battered, and she had no idea what to do anymore. She sobbed for quite a few minutes before deciding that she would have to relocate them to a secure location and that she would be responsible for handling everything. Ino, don't. Shikamaru brought Ino to the ground, preventing her from moving. She began to shout, What do you think you're doing, Shikamaru? Treating a lady in this manner was inappropriate. Looking down, Ino saw the invisible string and said, "If you look at where you're going, you would have stepped into a trap." She paused her tirade to consider the potential consequences of crossing that line. That thought made her shudder. She turned to face the boy and said, "Thank you, Shikamaru. He is cautious for someone who is so indolent." Sakura alternated between tending to her teammates' needs. Setting up all those traps was even more of a hassle than dragging the two of them into this place. She let out a sigh. She had no idea when they would both be back up, but it didn't appear to be very soon. They only had 4 days left, and they didn't even have their necessary scrolls. Her attention was immediately drawn to the sound of a twig snapping. She spun around in a flash and saw the group of sound genins directly. The boy with the bandages covering his face said, "Hello, little girl. We're here for Uchiha Sasuke. If you give us to him, we'll even consider about letting you live." The other boy chuckled. "I can't believe he was chosen by Orochimaru." The girl slapped both of them on the head and said, "Dosu, Zaku. What the hell are you doing? Let's just kill the boy and be done with it." With a smile, Zaku stepped forward and said, "I'll handle this then." He held out his hands and was ready to run forward when a shadowy figure stopped him. "These babies been itching to come out." Zaku was sent back to his teammates after the figure in front of him gave him an upper kick to the stomach. The sound crew was taken by surprise and gasped. Unable to process what had happened, Sakura gazed at her savior in disbelief. However, she was unable to forget her savior, whom she recognized. Lee.San. Daring his opponents to attack, the green genin stood in front of Sakura with his right palm open and his left hand behind his back. "I promised that I would protect you, Sakura.San, and I intend to do it." Lee gave Sakura his good guy stance and said, "Don't worry, Sakura.San. While the mighty green beast of Konoha is here, no one shall lay a hand on you." Torn between letting the bad guys kill her and letting Lee save her, Sakura turned to face Lee. In any event, it did not turn out well for her. Sakura blinked as she took a closer look at Lee, who had a determined expression on his face. A chipmunk. A chipmunk perched on Lee's shoulders. Discuss fantasies that never materialize. Instead of riding a horse, her shining armored ninja, her knight, was wearing a green bodysuit and riding a chipmunk. Sakura smiled at him, a little too artificially. "Thanks, Lee.San." A good guy smile that rivals his sensei's was flashed at her by Lee. Like any gentleman, he wanted to reassure the girl that everything would be alright. "I'll kill you," exclaimed Zaku. His right fist arched back slightly as he charged in blindly. Lee avoided the attack after spotting the approach. Just as he was about to sweep his legs, he sensed another person approaching from behind. Behind him, Dosu emerged and attempted to backhand Lee. Lee leapt away from the double team and ducked under the backhand. When Lee landed in front of Sakura, he went to his knees and clutched his painfully aching ears. Sakura hurried to join him, curious to see what would happen. "Lee.San, are you okay?" Lee gazed at her, perplexed as to why he could see her mouth moving but couldn't hear any sounds. To see if numbing the pain would help, he rubbed his ears slowly. Sakura became alarmed as she saw Lee frantically attempting to restore his hearing, but Dosu grinned from beneath his bandages and said, "Your friend won't be hearing anything for a while. I increased the frequency of my sounds to just give him a taste of deafness." Her body trembled from the terror, and she felt weak in the knees. Zaku yelled, "Zakuha!" before unleashing his attack of sound waves. There was a loud rumbling behind Sakura and Lee. "Please, please, move." Sakura let out a cry, but her body did not react. An unseen force drew nearer and nearer to her. After closing her eyes and waiting for the pain, she discovered that she was floating in midair. She wondered if heaven was green rather than white as she slowly opened her eyes. She sensed that she was being held tightly by powerful hands. She looked up to see Lee holding her as she ducked the attack, saying, "Don't worry, Sakura.San. I got you." Just between the enemy and their friends, the two landed back on the ground. Kin stepped forward, her voice full of hate. "The girl's mine." She pulled out some needles and hurled them at Sakura, saying, "I hate girls like you, being so glamorous and popular, but you're nothing here. In here, the strong survives and the weak dies." Feared by her opponent, Sakura swiftly pulled out a kunai but handled it awkwardly. She was able to sidestep one needle and deflect another, but the kunai escaped her grasp, leaving her vulnerable to the remainder of the attack. She tried to accept the pain by embracing herself, but nothing happened. Lee shoved her aside and endured the needle attack on his own. Arg! Lee let out a painful cry. He gripped his shoulder, attempting to manage the discomfort. Dosu stepped out from behind Lee and kicked him in the direction of Zaku, saying, "Don't let your guard down, fool. Eat it, Zakuha." Zaku exclaimed with satisfaction as his attack struck the genin square in the face. Lee moaned in agony and was flung back, tumbling across the floor. Sakura sat here feeling powerless as she watched in horror as the sound crew continued to attack Lee. As Lee attempted to get back up, she noticed him falling again and asked, "Why am I always so helpless?" "That's because you are powerless." Sakura's eyes began to well up with tears as she realized her subconscious was telling the truth. "Rise and assist him." Sakura slowly stood up, and she began to sniffle a little. Kin saw the girl stand up at last. "Ah, did we hurt your boyfriend too much? Don't cry, you'll be joining him soon." Sakura's eyes were filled with fierce determination as she looked up. Sakura threw some shurikens at the girl, expecting her to dodge, but instead she said, "I'm crying because I finally realized what a stuck-up girl I was, but no more." Kin chuckled at the pitiful effort. She simply shifted to one side and allowed the projectiles to pass her without causing any harm. "Is that all you got?" she asked. "Nope." Sakura rushed forward, using a simple academy jutsu that she had practiced for hours. Bushin no Jutsu. 3 Sakura clones materialized next to her, all of them sprinting in the direction of the girl. The clones hurled their kunais at Kin in a hurry, but they were also unsuccessful. "What are you aiming for, Pinky?" Kin asked, focusing on the girl's dejected attempts rather than the weapons. She saw a flurry of weapons approaching her as she heard a snap. She swore at herself for her recklessness. As the girl jumped away, Kin heard her say, "I was called the brainy one in school because I studied hard." Sakura hurried up in front of Kin and gave the girl a hard headbutt, sending them both tumbling to the ground. "I never excelled at anything besides academics and I was always picked on by bullies." Sakura flipped upside down and twisted her body in midair, bringing her leg down on Kin and sending her toward the ground with more force. But never again. Sakura was panting heavily as she stood in front of a fallen Kin. "I will never be helpless again." Sakura-san, look out. Sakura noticed Zaku standing in front of her after hearing Lee's warning a bit too late. With the intention of blasting Sakura with his sound, Zaku raised his arm and said, "You're mine now." Sakura swiftly put her hands behind her head and said, "Not this time, you oversized jerk." Then, she shocked everyone by doing something unexpected. She cut her beloved hair, the very hair she cherished, without hesitation. She swiftly threw it in Zaku's face as soon as she felt the final haircut, diverting his attention long enough. Lee was shocked to see pink hair flying everywhere when he looked up from the floor. He was momentarily distracted as Sakura threw her freshly cut hair at Zaku's face. Lee rushed forward and greeted Dosu with a spinning heel to the face, sending him straight to the ground. "Yosh! I won't let Sakura-san's sacrifice go in vain," Lee exclaimed. Lee kept sprinting in Zaku's direction. Sakura leapt back, allowing Lee enough space to launch his attack. "Do it now, Lee-san," she exclaimed. Lee yelled at the unanticipated Zaku, "Omit Renge." He took great pride in this attack, which he had worked hard to perfect. With a forceful kick that struck Zaku's chin and sent him flying upward, Lee leapt from the ground. Zaku was rendered helpless when Lee instantly leapt up after him and struck a pressure point on his back. "This is for Sakura-san." Lee wrapped the boy in his arms and started to fall toward the ground. As he watched, Dosu saw his partner fall to the ground. The hard earth became soft as he swiftly dug his hands deep into the ground and let out a hitch-pitch frequency. Because Lee didn't know what Dosu was doing, he slammed Zaku into the soft ground, neutralizing his attack. Lee released the fallen Zaku and rose slowly before collapsing once more, unable to get to his feet. To make sure he was alright, Sakura hurried to his side. Sakura only needed to hear Lee's brief response. "Lee-san, are you okay?" As he used to do for her, Sakura stood before Lee. Now that he was too weak to fight, it was her responsibility to keep everyone safe. She couldn't disappoint them. Everyone was counting on her, not after what transpired. "Our patience is running out. Your life ends here." Zaku was about to launch his attack when everyone's attention was suddenly drawn to the sudden explosion of chakra levels. Sasuke feels the power coursing through his veins as he awakens from his sleep. He gazed at himself, wondering whether he was dreaming or not. He just couldn't believe how powerful he was now. He said to himself, not caring if anyone heard, "I finally understand the path that is open to me. I am an avenger. I will do anything for power, even if it means selling my soul to the devil for power." With all of this power, the ability to finally accomplish his objectives, he felt alive. From outside the makeshift bed, he heard laughter. He turned to see a battered Lee and 2 men standing in front of Sakura. He grinned. This would be a great time to test them out. Sakura calmly refused to back down and held her ground. Attempting to find a way out, she was about to give up when someone appeared in front of her, separating her from Zaku. She slowly raised her head to see a boy who remarkably resembled her Sasuke-kun. He even wears the same clothes as him, with the exception that Sasuke-kun's dark tattoos on one side of his body are absent. Who did this to you, Sakura? Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, blinking twice in surprise at Sasuke's physical transformation. Unfazed by this rookie, Zaku boasted, "It was me." "You got a problem about it?" He needed to know why this child was so important to Orochimaru-sama. Sasuke wondered who the boy was as he looked at him. "You talk big for a small man. Does picking on girls make you feel like a man?" Zaku's pride was wounded, and soon his anger took over. "Dai, Zankukyokuha." Zaku threw the blast at the new child, the one Orochimaru thought was deserving. "Let's see if you survive this." Zaku grinned as he saw his final technique strike the target and cause an explosion. "I knew he was nothing." "Your attack was pretty weak." Zaku appeared shocked. In addition to dodging the blow, the child also picked up the other two while in motion. "You seem pretty fond of those arms." Zaku searched the area but couldn't locate Sasuke. "Zaku, behind you." Zaku discovered Sasuke behind him after heeding the warning a little too late. Sasuke grinned. Sasuke pulled Zaku's arm back with the intention of breaking it, saying, "You won't need these arms now." Feeling the strain that Sasuke was putting on his arms, Zaku let out a cry of agony. Naruto glanced around, unable to identify the place. Although he frequently visited his mindscape, this area was unfamiliar to him. This labyrinth maze was different from the dark, murky one he was accustomed to. There were doors all over it that would take him anywhere. Gazing at the infinite number of doors, Naruto exclaimed, "Where am I?" Although he wasn't entirely sure why, he could feel his body moving. Naruto yelled, "Kyuubi!" Perhaps the fox could explain this shift. Naruto yelled, "Kyuubi, answer me," in an attempt to attract the demon's attention. Naruto sensed a powerful aura emanating from a door as he passed it. It seemed as though his body was reaching out to him in response to the calling. A little terrified of the truths that might be revealed beyond, Naruto opened the door. As he reached for the doorknob, his hands began to shake, but Naruto pulled the door open with a fierce determination. The room began to disappear as soon as he entered, and two tombstones that were situated in the middle of a cemetery were in front of him. Naruto grinned as he gazed at the two figures perched atop the tombstones. The first voice called out to him, "It's about time you got here." The second voice added, "Yup, we were starting to get bored." Unable to react, Naruto just stood there in disbelief. Two individuals who resembled him were confronted in person. However, one was dressed entirely in black, while the other was dressed entirely in white. Unable to understand the situation, Naruto questioned, Who are you guys?" He didn't make these clones, and he didn't experience the typical bond with his clones. The black-clad Naruto replied, "We are you, but we are also not you." The Kyuubi Naruto gestured to the other half and said, "I'm the piece that represents the Kyuubi factor and he is the purified Naruto." Naruto gave him an odd look. Confounded by the circumstances, Naruto scratched his head and said, "You're not making any sense here." The white-clad Naruto leapt down from the tombstone and stretched his legs, saying, "We represent the fragmented pieces of your soul. Ever since Orochimaru put that seal to contain your demon chakra, it did something more. It split your soul into pieces. Even before that snake, we have been battling for dominance in here." Naruto approached and looked at the other two Narutos. He concluded that he had finally lost his mind when he was able to tell that they were real and not fake. "This is the part where I finally retire as a ninja because of me going crazy, right?" Naruto, who was dark, chuckled. "Crazy? No, but you retiring as a ninja? It might happen if we don't do something about this balance." Unsure of what to do, Naruto stayed silent. All of this was unfamiliar to him. Hell, his only concern before today was what to eat for supper. The white Naruto went on to describe the danger of the situation. "The fight for balance, Naruto, is between your good side, your dark side, and the mixture. Each side has been struggling for dominance, but it was always a stalemate. Now, thanks to that snake, we each have a chance to win. Whoever wins, the other will perish forever. You are here to decide the future of your soul." Naruto posed the question, "And if we don't decide?" Knowing the answer, he had to discover the answer for himself, even though he knew it deep down. Both Narutos had a dejected expression on their faces as they gazed at the original. They both spoke simultaneously. "Then all of us will cease to exist." Naruto let out a sigh. If he had to fight to stay alive, he would. What do you suggest we do? It is not yet possible for him to vanish. He still had people to see and things to finish. Naruto, who was dark, clapped his hands. Well, me and Whitey over there came up with a plan. If all of us were to become one, then we will be whole once again. Naruto appeared uneasy as his intuition took over. What will happen to us when we merge? This time, it was the purified Naruto who spoke. We won't disappear if that's what you're afraid of. We will be retaining the same memories, but our ideals, our goals, our priorities will become one. The old Naruto will disappear, but the new Naruto will be a combination of all of us. It is up to you if you want to do it. We pretty much agreed on this, all that's left is your answer. Inside his chest, Naruto could feel his heart beating slowly. Even if it meant doing the right thing, he knew the answer. Grinning, he extended his hand. The other Narutos grinned and held out their hands, saying, "Let's do this." The original Naruto pondered as all of the Narutos piled their hands on top of one another. Before anyone could respond, Naruto noticed a light starting to shine from the middle of their hands. "What will become of our strength then?" he asked. "Don't worry about it," was the final sound Naruto heard before everything was vanished into the light. Sasuke joked, "Goodbye to your arms," and started ripping Zaku's arms from their sockets. Zaku's right arm was yanked out, and he screamed. "Oh, there goes one." Sasuke started working on the other arm, but he was stopped by another hand as he was about to stretch it. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock as he saw Naruto standing in front of him, holding tightly to his wrist. "What, Naruto?" he asked. He was not even aware of Naruto's movement. Sakura exclaimed, "Naruto." She was relieved that her final teammate was awake and preventing Sasuke from ripping out Zaku's arm. Naruto calmly replied, "No, Sasuke. I can't let you do this." He inhaled deeply as he felt his body's inner calm and strength return. With his Sharingan activated, Sasuke gazed at the blonde, observing the serene, subtle red aura that surrounded him. He grinned. Sasuke threw Zaku away, relieved that the time had finally come for him to establish his superiority. "It's time that we settle this, Naruto." When Sasuke threw a quick right hand at Naruto, all he found was air. "It's time that you finally learn which one of us is stronger." In slow motion, Naruto saw Sasuke's punch coming at him and easily sidestepped it. "So, this is what they intended to say." Sasuke snarled. He kept attacking Naruto, but when he realized he couldn't keep up with Naruto's speed, it annoyed him. "How?" he exclaimed as he leapt over Naruto and swiftly broke through some hand seals. "Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu." He saw Naruto slamming his hands to the ground as soon as he released his jutsu. "Doden. Doryuheiki." The powerful earth rushed to the surface, creating a wall that effectively stopped the onslaught of flames. Sasuke's gaze expanded. How is he so quick? When Sasuke looked again, nothing was visible behind that wall. He searched the area in an attempt to find Naruto. "You're unstable, Sasuke. Let me get you some help." Naruto was behind Sasuke when he turned around. "You're mistaken. This is the power I require." Sasuke ducked beneath Naruto's blow and leapt out of reach. Another voice called from behind the Uchiha, "Sorry, Sasuke." As he glanced around, he noticed another Naruto with his fist aimed directly at him. He took the hit and flew back because he was unable to dodge in time. Sasuke was able to turn his head and see Naruto had already delivered the last blow, saying, "This is for your own good." With the intention of unconsciousing the fallen Uchiha, Naruto ran in his direction. Naruto leapt forward and rendered the Uchiha unconscious as soon as Sasuke was within range. Just before they hit the ground, he grabbed the boy and gently placed Sasuke on the ground. He saw Dosu, the last member of the Sound. Dosu feared for his life when he saw Naruto staring at him. Dosu pulled out the Earth Scroll and held it in front of him, saying, "Please. Let us leave and in return, we'll give you this scroll." Naruto nodded after glancing at the scroll. Dosu hurriedly gathered his teammates and fled, grateful for his survival but not caring where he ended up. Approaching the scroll, Naruto placed it alongside their other scroll. He heard a faint moan behind him and realized it was Lee. "Now that we have two, we can go and seek medical attention at the tower." As they walked toward Naruto, Sakura was standing by Lee's side. Lee attempted to bow his head when he said, "Naruto-san." However, Naruto interrupted him in the middle of his sentence by raising his hand. "Don't, you're injured. Save your strength." Lee gave a little chuckle. The flames of youth is not easily doused. Sakura let out a sigh. She glanced at Naruto and said, Naruto. She couldn't quite place it yet, but there was something different about the boy. You seem different. Naruto grinned. I feel different. That statement was truthful. He felt better than ever before. The anger he harbored and the emotions he suppressed were gone. He had no regrets and no resentment toward anything for the first time in his life. A firm voice yelled, "You can hand Lee over to us now." Knowing the source of the voice, Naruto turned around. Come and get him, Hyuga Neji. He needs medical attention. Tenten and Neji leapt from their tree and looked at Lee. Tenten walked over to Lee's other side and took control, asking, "Damn it, Lee, why did you rush off like that?" Sakura gently massaged her shoulders after feeling relieved when Lee was removed from her. Lee had an apologetic look on his face as he glanced at Neji. Sorry, Neji. Neji let out a sigh. Neji was left behind as Tenten and Lee began to leave, saying, "Let's get going." Neji gave the boy a final glance before vanishing, saying, "I look forward to fighting you in the finals." Naruto whispered into the wind, "You're welcome," in response. He returned his focus to Sakura and Sasuke, who was unconscious. We have to get a move on Sakura. Naruto approached Sasuke and took him in his arms. Sakura nodded, wanting nothing more than to get out of this forest. Our new goal is to reach the tower by nightfall. A person could hear different sounds coming from the area if they could remain silent for a short while. The forest was filled with the faint sounds of footsteps. In an attempt to get to their destination as soon as possible, the group of genins hurried from one area to the next. Uncertain of their circumstances, the traveling duo fell silent. For the past day, they have been running constantly, hardly pausing for unneeded activities. An excessive number of questions remained unresolved. In order to avoid wasting any more time when Sasuke might require medical attention, birds flew out of the way as the ninjas jumped from tree to tree. Exploring his new self one step at a time, Naruto became absorbed in his own world. He sensed that the merger had doubled his strength and abilities. There were a lot of unanswered questions, and no one was available to help him along the way. Now, he had no one to turn to but himself for assistance. Kyuubi, Naruto attempted to speak with the beast, but it appeared to be a fruitless attempt. It seemed as though Kyuubi didn't even live inside of him. The strange thing was that he always sensed the blasted fox's presence, but now he didn't. To find out what had happened to his tenant, Naruto created a mental checklist. For no apparent reason, Naruto's mouth began to smile as he jumped from tree to tree. He had a smile on his face, but he's not sure why. In the past, his smile served only as a mask to protect him from the hardships of the outside world. His face now simply grinned since it felt wonderful to complete the task. He sensed that his package beside him was starting to move. Naruto gave himself a smile. It was almost time for Sleeping Beauty to awaken. Sakura made a valiant effort to keep up with the person ahead of her. She felt her thoughts straying back to the mystery that was Naruto as she jumped from one branch to the next. She had known Naruto since the beginning as a sardonic, protective boy with a secret. He changed because of something that had happened in the past. This new Naruto was more self-assured and more gregarious. Although she enjoyed this new Naruto, there were still too many unanswered questions. The opportunity was simply too good to miss. Nothing was there to stop them. Sakura said, "Nay, Naruto," as she hid beneath some branches. Naruto grinned at her as he glanced over his shoulder. "Yes, Sakura?" When he referred to her by her first name rather than her clan name, Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. Then, unsure of how to interpret this choice, she squinted. She made the decision to remain vigilant in case he were deceiving her once more. As she watched, the Naruto in front of her simply shrugged his shoulders and laughed. "What are you? Know what happened to you?" she asked. Naruto accelerated his pace once more after making the final cryptic remark, "I just saw the light." There was still some of the old Naruto inside, and Sakura moaned in exasperation. The sun had just begun to set when Sakura and Naruto arrived at the tower. After dropping Sasuke to the ground, Naruto violently shook him. The slow stirring of Sasuke was encouraging. Sakura held her breath, waiting to see what would happen next. One half of her was concerned about the outcome of her Sasuke-kun, and the other half was concerned about whether or not her Sasuke-kun would return to normal. In Sakura's world, Sasuke was everything. Sasuke blinked and opened his eyes slowly. Terrified by the scene in front of him, he quickly scooted back. He blinked once more as he caught his breath. Naruto, Sakura and Naruto were standing in front of him, both grinning and giving him a serious look. In an attempt to awaken from this nightmare, Sasuke pinched himself. The spot where he simply pinched himself was where he felt the pain. No, this was not a dream. Sasuke said slowly as he reflected on what had just happened. He fixed his gaze on Naruto, the boy who had once again outperformed him. Sasuke made a mental vow to himself. I swear on the Uchiha name that I will surpass you by the end of this exam, Naruto. He belonged to a noble clan and was an elite ninja known as a Uchiha. How could a kid without a name so easily surpass him? The idea itself infuriated Sasuke. As he stood up, Sasuke inhaled deeply in an attempt to relax. He squinted at his teammates and said, "So?" Looking around, Sasuke recognized the tower and asked, "What are we waiting for? Do we have the scrolls?" With a nod, Naruto took 2 scrolls out of his back pocket. Here. Naruto hurled a scroll at Sasuke, who unexpectedly managed to catch it. Sakura was unable to see Naruto tossing the scroll, so she blinked. Sasuke felt something in his hand as he looked at it. He felt the curse seal acting up again when his mind finally registered the unknown item, but he chose to ignore it. The fact that he was unable to detect the object hurt him. To their surprise, no one was there to welcome them as the group entered the tower. Sakura glanced around, curious about what was happening. After taking another look around, she said, "I thought people would be greeting us at least." And then she gave up. Sakura began to panic, not wanting to fail after making it this far. All that trouble for these scrolls. Maybe we're too late, she asked herself. In an attempt to soothe Sakura, Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "Relax." Naruto looked at his scroll, the Heaven Scroll, and said, "Let's just open the scroll. Maybe they can tell us something in there." He observed Sasuke doing the same, both of them speculating about what might be in the scroll. Both of them opened the scroll and nodded. When the scrolls began to emit smoke, everyone's eyes widened. Naruto realized what these scrolls were and yelled, "Quick, throw it to the ground." Instead, Sasuke and Naruto both threw away their scrolls. A man stepped up as smoke rushed upward as soon as the scrolls hit the floor. "Greetings, my young ninjas." A voice filled the smoke with volume. "Behold the divine ninja Jiraiya, far east of Eden Wild Dance." Through the smoke, a man danced, feeling proud of himself. They couldn't even clap because they were so enthralled with my dance. Jiraiya looked up, shocked to see the team that had called him averting their eyes. "I knew I was good, but damn, I must be great." When Jiraiya was not the center of attention, his mouth fell open. Until he made the decision to show them some decency, he bowed his head in surrender. "Aha! I got you now," Jiraiya cried out as he dashed in the direction of the unexpected squad. He recognized the blonde-haired one a little as he arrived at the team. He was about to wrap his arm around the boy's neck when he discovered that he was unable to secure the headlock. "Shouldn't sneak up on people like that, Arrow, Senin." "Naruto?" Jiraiya asked, her eyes widening. Before hurling the man over his shoulders, the boy tightened his hold on his wrist. The group saw the man who had been dubbed the legendary Toad Sannin crash into a wall. As he approached the wall to see how his sensei was doing, Naruto uttered the words, "Don't ever sneak up on me like that," with firmness. "What are you doing here? I thought you would have been peeping or something." After letting out a groan, Jiraiya collapsed. The Sannin glanced at Naruto and rubbed his eyes. "What happened to you, boy? I can feel a change from within you." Naruto chuckled a little. "Sit down, Arrow, Senin. I got a story to tell you." In order to avoid having all of his secrets revealed, Naruto went over the small details with Team 7 and their shocked proctor in a separate room. Jiraiya only needed a few subtle clues to figure out Naruto's rather unusual predicament. Jiraiya led the way, smiling broadly as she opened the door and said, "Okay, now that we got the hard part out of the way, let me show you guys the guest rooms." Sakura and Sasuke moved forward, keen to sleep. Jiraiya pulled Naruto back just as he was ready to follow, forcing the boy to remain a little while longer. With a direct question, Jiraiya said, "So how is the seal?" Naruto gave a shrug. He began to tell Jiraiya about his other experience, saying, "I haven't been able to reach the furball yet." Jiraiya gradually stopped paying attention to Naruto and became absorbed in his own thoughts. He pondered whether Naruto's transformation was brought on by Orochimaru's seal. At last, Naruto was complete. The boy's puzzle is beginning to fit together. He is no longer the bewildered, irate boy he was in previous years. One thought crossed his mind as he disregarded Naruto's words. He couldn't help but smile at Naruto as he said, "Maybe, just maybe someday, Orochimaru, I'll thank you for that you did for my student." Now he was starting to resemble his father. Emotion is even starting to appear in his eyes. Naruto leapt back and started to spread his arms, saying, "Hey Arrow, Senin, how about a quick match?" I haven't had the chance to go all out yet. Unconsciously, he released his chakra. Although the boy was unaware of it, Jiraiya made sure he knew. When he glimpsed the boy's aura, his senses went into overdrive. Right now, it was just so unpolished and raw. If Naruto were a diamond, he would be a roughed out, freshly cut gem, but if he were constantly polished, he would surpass even the most brilliant gems in terms of brilliance. Jiraiya laughed to himself and shook his head. I said the same thing about the fourth Naruto. It appears that the apple and the tree are close. He decided on a course of action. The next phase of training was about to begin. Tell you what, Naruto, if you can get past the preliminaries, I will personally teach you a new jutsu that will guarantee make you the star of the show. Naruto's eyes grew wide, and he started to scream and jump up and down. Naruto began to jump around, too excited to pay attention to anything else. Yes, you got yourself a bed arrow. Senin. I will pass this and soon, you'll be begging me to take you on as my apprentice, he exclaimed. Jiraiya gave himself a sly smile. Jiraiya muttered to himself, you have grown a lot, Gaki. Jiraiya realized he had a job to do before he started testing his student. He vanished in a cloud of smoke after saying, whoops. We can't do this now, I got stuff to do. Naruto was left alone in the room. A little disappointed, Naruto lowered his head and said, ah. His excitement had nowhere to go now that he was anticipating that fight. Naruto looked around, feeling alone in the room and not even thinking to himself. Look on the bright side, Naruto. The second part is about to end soon. Hello? Who's there? Naruto said, attempting to identify the voice's origin. Naruto, you don't need to search far. We're in here. Naruto was pulled into his mindscape once more. Before he emerged, he struck each rock 3 times, as if he had just been thrown into a whirlpool with rocks on it. Naruto froze at the sound of a very familiar voice saying, don't worry. The next time you come here, it will be a whole lot easier. Shocking, isn't it? Naruto asked as 2 individuals he never expected to see again stood in front of him. Naruto's mouth dropped slightly as he stood there, asking, WH. What? How? They grinned, Naruto's. The white Naruto took the lead and stepped forward, saying, we only have limited time here, so let's make this quick. He waved his hand and said, the thing behind me, Naruto. The room's eerie background vanished, giving way to a familiar one. Will soon begin to awaken from his slumber. Peeking behind his other self, Naruto saw a sleeping but vulnerable beast. The white Naruto bowed his head respectfully as the Kyuubified Naruto snickered, saying, once he awakens, which will be soon, you will no longer be influenced by his behavior. The original seal on your stomach was flawed. No disrespect to the Yondaime. It was originally designed for you to slowly take the Kyuubi's chakra and merge it with your own, making it your own unique signature, but that didn't stop the Kyuubi from trying to leak some of his own traits into yours. Naruto gazed at the cunning creature. Just picture him attempting to do that. No way in hell. Nobody controls him and escapes punishment. Later on, there would be some restitution. Determined to make Kyuubi's sleep intolerable, Naruto stepped forward and began to form a Rasengan on his right hand. Why that furball? Wait until I get my hands on him, he exclaimed. The Kyuubified Naruto intervened and stopped Naruto from moving forward, saying, whoa. Are you stupid? If you do it now, then you'll miss the best part of our speech. Naruto smiled at him in a playful manner. The Kyuubified Naruto folded his arms and sulked, saying, okay, fine. His speech. The white Naruto rubbed his chin as he considered what he had just said. Anyway, thanks to us, we have changed the way the seal works. You will still slowly merge your chakra together, but for an added bonus, you'll be able to retain some of his abilities, such as advanced regeneration and enhanced senses. Yup, that's all we have to say. Now facing the Kyuubified Naruto, Naruto spun around. The Kyuubified Naruto grinned ominously and asked, so now that the boring one is done, what about the demonic seal that I have placed on my body? Thank God you think he's boring too. Clearly offended, the white Naruto sighed, well, excuse me for being the only sensible one here. I am those demonic seals, buddy. When we combined, my strength now belongs with you. You were at level 2 and now you gained that power. You don't need to put more of those demonic seals on you since we already fixed the Yondaime's seal. How's that for an improvement? This is so cool, Naruto exclaimed, unaware of the excitement he was feeling over the news. Then the room started to tremble and spin. Startled, Naruto turned to see his 2 companions gradually fading away. The Kyuubified Naruto calmly remarked, hey, don't give us that face. It doesn't suit us. You knew it was going to happen. Tears began to well up in Naruto's eyes. He was experiencing the emotions of losing a loved one once more. Because of what they had in common, he felt they were like his brothers during their brief time together. Naruto quickly realized that his two brothers had vanished for good, never to be seen again. "It's going to be okay. We will always be with you in spirit." Kyuubi, the sleeping beast, was lying in front of him. Understanding the sacrifice they made for him to have a better life, Naruto grinned a little. As his body began to slowly take breaths, Naruto whispered, "I won't let everyone down this time around. Last time, I didn't have enough power, but now, I have the power to change my fate." He shut his eyes and left the beast's lair. Naruto discovered upon awakening that he had been in the same room prior to his collapse. He rubbed his head, attempting to regain his sense of direction. "We will now commence the start of the preliminaries. Please come down into the stage when your name is called." A voice of authorization spoke. When Naruto realized that the second exam wouldn't be over for another day, his eyes widened. How long was he absent? In an attempt to get in time, he hurried through the doorway. Will Inuzuka, Kiba and Uzumaki Naruto step forward? Finally, Kiba exclaimed as he leapt onto the railings, pointing directly at Naruto. This time, it's personal. Naruto felt a mixture of surprise and awe. His opponent was none other than Kiba, and the platform was enormous. He must have Lady Luck on his side. Naruto recognized the crowd as he glanced around. They were the same rookies with whom he had graduated from the academy. Gaara was present, as were Kabuto and his group. Naruto briefly made eye contact with Gaara before releasing it. He approached the handrails nonchalantly before turning around and resting his back against them. He could see the Junin instructors observing him with interest. They were all shocked by what he did next. He rolled over and leaned back. Nobody could figure out why he did that, so they all looked at him in shock. Jiraiya and Sarutobi grinned as they saw the boy they knew returning at last. Naruto closed his eyes and began to rapidly descend toward the ground. Kiba's voice projected into Naruto's mind, "That's right, death is what you would get either way if you faced me." In midair, Naruto swiftly turned around and landed on his feet with grace. Naruto stood up slowly, a little pleased with himself. As Kiba watched the exchange between Sakura and Sasuke from the spectator stand, he said, "Looks like your teammates didn't even care if you died or not." Avoid falling for his taunt. Don't pay attention to him. Naruto repeatedly reminded himself of this. He felt his eyes moving toward his teammates, but he didn't want to look. When Naruto saw their response, his head fell. They didn't care after all. His heart grew numb. Despite everything he had done, they had yet to recognize him. Naruto whispered to himself, "I thought after all this, they would have at least considered me to be a friend." Naruto didn't hear the examiner announce the beginning of the match because he was too preoccupied with his own thoughts. Kiba intended to seize the opportunity and ran directly for Naruto. Unaware of anything, Naruto stood there. His face began to ache sharply, and then he was flung back against the wall. Akamaru also barked, "Start counting, examiner. He won't be getting up." The swift knockout silenced the crowd. Nobody thought Kiba would take Naruto out so quickly. A chilly voice echoed through the arena, "I told you that the next time we meet, I will end your life." An overwhelming force blew away the dust from the debris. With a look of rage in his eyes, Naruto stood back up. Kiba took a slow step back, his face turning horrified. He didn't recognize this individual. It seemed as though a new person had just taken Naruto's place. With the intention of defending his master, Akamaru leapt in front of him. The dog was in front of Naruto as he ran forward. The boy's speed astounded everyone, and they all had their eyes fixed on him. Astonished by the boy's speed, Kakashi pulled out his Sharingan. Because Akamaru was too busy to register the sentence, he said, "Out of my way, mutt." Before he knew it, Naruto was standing directly in front of him. The dog flew straight into the wall after Naruto slammed his leg into its ribs. The dog made contact with the wall with a loud crack. "Ah! Akamaru!" Kiba exclaimed, his eyes widening. With a battle cry, he leapt upon Naruto. He threw a barrage of punches at the boy, but he was unable to land any of them. Naruto avoided all of them. Pitiful. Naruto slammed his head forward, aiming for a headbutt, avoiding the final blow. Kiba flew back and Naruto staggered back as both heads collided. Even though Naruto's head was pounding from the agony, it was worth it to watch Kiba's head bleed. Kiba slowly stood up, his face streaming with blood. He turned to face Akamaru, his companion, who was lying on the ground, gasping for air. "I'll kill you." Kiba hurried forward, both kunais in his hands. "Gatsuga!" Kiba began to spin, intending to murder Naruto. While the instructors were worried about the match's outcome, some of the spectators displayed excitement as they watched. Kurenai said, Kakashi. If your student doesn't give up now, he'll end up dead. She had never witnessed Kiba so enraged, and it genuinely alarmed her. Kakashi gave a headshake. I can't stop him even if I wanted to. What do you mean? Naruto's always been stronger than me. Kurenai gasped. She was taken aback. She had always assumed that Konoha's own copy ninja would have been among the best in the community, so it was shocking to learn that a simple genin had outperformed him. How does that boy get so much power? Kakashi was aware of the solution. He answered without hesitation, experience. He kept his gaze fixed on the match, watching intently as Naruto was struck squarely by the Inuzuka's attack. Naruto endured the pain by gritting his teeth. Naruto was focusing his chakra to be at the spot where the attack was striking him, making everyone appear to be motionless. Kiba started directing more of her chakra toward Naruto. Kiba pushed forward and hit Naruto, saying, "You're mine now." With Kiba on top of him and kunais at his throat, Naruto was slammed squarely into the ground. "You were a prick for doing that to Akamaru, you bastard. Give up now before I slice your throat open." Everyone was shocked when the boy said, "Go ahead, if you slice my throat open, you'll be a hero." Nobody anticipated that he would say it. I was never well liked in this village anyway. Killing me would be doing them all a favor. Kiba had rage in his eyes. How the hell can you say something like that? Don't you care about your own life? Naruto merely chuckled. It was easy to see what the boy was talking about when he said, "We are ninjas, tools that people use and discard once they're done with us. It's just like friends. You only use them to your own benefit and nothing else." Kiba clenched his teeth and said, "If you don't kill me now, Kiba, I'm going to retaliate." He didn't want things to go this way. He could see Naruto's eyes were hurting. "Looks like my student won, Kakashi." As he watched the chakra rise from Naruto's inside, Kakashi remarked, "Don't count on it." Last warning, Kiba. Kiba made his point clear by stomping on Naruto, saying, "No, you are in no position to demand anything, you prick." After taking a deep breath, Naruto said, "Fine. Have it your way. Futon, Daitopa." Kiba jumped away as winds erupted from Naruto, causing his eyes to widen. With a faint smile on his face, he watched Naruto get to his feet. He chose to confront Naruto after spotting him running in his direction. Performing another Gatsuga, Kiba leapt and began spinning, saying, "Stubborn fool. Don't you know when to quit?" The Gatsuga was more powerful this time than the last. "Don't you get tired by repeating the same attack? I only saw it once and I already know how to counter it." Everyone was taken aback. Before, no one had ever faced a Gatsuga head-on. Kurenai insisted, "What does he mean by that, Kakashi? Jokes had no place here. Naruto will be killed if he remains motionless." Kakashi said sharply, concentrating solely on the match, "Shut up and watch." The boy's audacious statement caught everyone's attention. "Your weakest point is the tip of your attack. If I can match the spin of your rotation there, you'll be as harmless as Sakura." Kiba kept going with the goal of winning the match in mind. Naruto slowed down his pace as Kiba got close enough so he could demonstrate his intentions to everyone. Rasengan. Naruto's palm erupted into a swirling ball of blue. With a thrust of his arm, Rasengan met Gatsuga. With his gaze focused on the technique, Sasuke could feel the power emanating from it. They all hung from the edge of their seats when an explosion happened in contact. Everyone was eager to see the outcome as the dust settled. "Come on, Kiba," was chanted by a number of someone. When they noticed a figure rising from the dust, they ceased their chanting. The words were whispered softly by a muffled voice. "Futon. Daitopa." Winds rushed out, instantly removing the dust. Naruto was standing over Kiba's beaten body. Kiba's body was in even worse condition, and his clothes appeared to have been torn by an untamed animal. "I told you that I would kill you the next time we meet, but it turns out that you're not worth killing." Kurenai's eyes were wide. Kakashi nodded, asking, Was that the fourth's technique?" She had heard tales of the Rasengan's strength. She was enraged and asked, "How could you teach it to that boy? Teaching a genin rank a jutsu was insane." Kurenai kept her shocked expression as she said, "I didn't teach it to him, Kurenai. He learned it himself." She was in too much shock to act. One of her students was just knocked out by a genin who is proficient in the fourth prize technique. Since he has no idea what he will do with the new technique, he should be viewed as a dangerous liability to the village. Naruto gave the examiner a signal to end the match. Hayate gave a nod of agreement. First match goes to Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto turned to face the shocked expressions on everyone's faces. No one was going to cheer him on, he sighed. For what reason did he have such high hopes? Just as he started to leave, he heard someone clapping. When he turned around, he saw Shikamaru and Choji clapping, and soon after, everyone else did the same. Naruto's face broke into a broad smile. The fact that there are people who accept him for who he is made him happy. Naruto began to falter and his vision grew hazy. He started to fall, but Kakashi caught him between his arms before he could reach the ground. "You did good, Naruto." Naruto was slowly raised into the stands by Kakashi, who allowed him to lean against the walls. It took some time for Naruto to come to. Kakashi said, "Yo," to his pupil. The indolent teacher was reading his favorite book while leaning against the rails. Naruto rubbed his head, his entire body aching. "What did I miss?" he asked. The boy instantly leapt to his feet, forgetting his pain, and said, "Well, you missed most of the matches, but congratulations, Naruto. You are in the finals." "Yada? Who am I facing? Lee? Sasuke? Teme?" Kakashi chuckled before his expression darkened. "Naruto, you will be facing Hyuga Neji." Naruto thought about the name for a while. "Oh, last year's rookie, no problem." Kakashi shook his head and laughed. "Just you, Naruto. Only you could simply laugh this off." Kakashi turned the page and went on. Kakashi said absently as he vanished, "Oh, by the way, Shikamaru, Sasuke, Gaara, Temari, and Neji got into the finals. It is in 1 month. Prepare for it, Naruto." Naruto grinned. It was time to demonstrate the new Naruto Uzumaki's abilities to the world. Konoha in the morning before there was some annoying tapping, a voice yelled, "Oigaki! Get up! Get up! Get up!" Rolling to one side of his bed, Naruto looked at his watch. 6 a.m. moaned Naruto. Unwillingly, he got out of the cozy, warm bed and walked to his windows. Startled by what he saw, he threw open his shades and collapsed. In an attempt to relax, Naruto patted his heart and asked, "What the hell are you doing, Ero?" "Senin." He let the Sannin in by opening the windows and asking, "Who the hell would be up this early?" Naruto yawned and asked, "What do you want?" Naruto felt a sharp pain in his stomach before he could question the statement, "Sorry kid, but this is going to hurt me more than it'll hurt you." He fell softly into Jiraiya's arms as he began to lose consciousness and blacked out. After 3 hours something stabbed Naruto in the back, causing him to start stirring. He was shocked to see trees everywhere when he opened his eyes. "About time you got up." With an unreadable expression, Naruto sat up. "Why?" Jiraiya gave his head a rub. "I always wanted to do that." Jiraiya was smashed into a tree by a fist that struck his face. "Coolly, wrong answer." Naruto replied. Jiraiya rubbed his nose and replied, "OWCH. How about the fact that I came here to cover our deal?" Naruto gave the man a wary look. "In the past, you never offered me direct training. What changed?" Jiraiya let out a sigh. This could no longer be avoided. Taking things lightly was never Naruto's style. Jiraiya emphasized the word. Neji won the match quite easily. No, in fact, he dominated it. In the Neji vs Hinata match, he landed a near-fatal blow on Hinata Naruto. A near-fatal blow to his own cousin. If he can do that to her Naruto, then who knows what this kid is capable of. Throughout the entire situation, Naruto said nothing. He recalled Hinata. A timid but kind individual who wouldn't harm a fly. "Why?" he murmured softly. With every sentence, Naruto's aura intensified, warning Jiraiya that his power was increasing. "Why must such a gentle person be forced into these kinds of situations?" he asked. "Save your anger for the tournament, Naruto." "Right," Naruto replied, his eyes resolute as he looked up. He got up and began stretching, saying, "Let's get to it. Listen here, Naruto. I'm going to teach you how to summon." Naruto gazed at him incredulously. "Do you think I'm finally ready?" Jiraiya chuckled. Jiraiya performed a series of hand seals before slamming his hands down. "Compared to 2 years ago when you were practically begging me. Yeah, I think you are ready." "Kachiyose no jutsu," bellowed the man. A toad the size of Jiraiya emerged, clutching a scroll, as the smoke dissipated. "You called Jiraiya Sama?" The talking toad startled Naruto, causing his mouth to drop a little. "Let my apprentice sign the contract." The toad drops the scroll to the ground in obedience. To his surprise, Naruto opened the scroll slowly and discovered that it was signed by only a few names. A. Ra.Shika.Za.Ma. Who was he? Ero, Senin? The nickname caused the toad to raise an eyebrow. When Jiraiya saw it, she gave a strange laugh. "I told you to stop calling me that, Gaki." "Oh. Arashi Kazama. You know him as the 4th Naruto." Naruto's gaze expanded. This was unthinkable. "My contract will be the same as the 4th's. Naruto's shock was abruptly broken. How'd I sign? He inquired excitedly. The toad croaked, with your blood. Naruto felt the blood trickle down as he bit his thumb. Feeling somewhat honored to sign the same scroll as the fourth, he meticulously wrote his name on it. After rolling the scroll back up, the toad vanished. He was attempting to remember the seals that Jiraiya had previously performed, but they were performed far too quickly. Show me the seals, Arrow, Sennin. Jiraiya grinned. When he first got the summoning contract, he was behaving exactly like the fourth. At a slower pace, Jiraiya repeated the sequence, saying, "Okay, watch me carefully, now try it." Naruto felt like a kid who had just gotten his birthday presents. He started to flip through the hand seals, still feeling the freshness of the blood on this thumb. The cry was, "Kachiyose no Jutsu," from Naruto. A tiny frog emerged as the smoke cleared. The tiny orange toad replied, "Yo. Give me some candy and I'll play with you." Jiraiya yelled, "This is the best you can do?" before striking Naruto in the head. Naruto complained, "You didn't say how much chakra to use." He looked down at the little toad. "So what's your name?" To which the little toad replied, "Gamakichi, now where's my candy?" After grinning, Naruto dug into his pockets. He kept searching through his pockets until he found a piece of mint, saying, "I know I had a piece somewhere." He gave the little toad the candy and said, "Here you go." Without hesitation, Gamakichi took it and put it in his mouth. He hopped on Naruto's head and said, "MMHMM. This is good. Okay, you may call on me anytime to play. Good spot." Jiraiya coughed, ahem. Jiraiya insisted, "Now this time, try it with all your chakra, we want to see the boss." As he repeated this exercise, Naruto gave a slight shake of his head, signaling the little toad to get off. Naruto closed his eyes and focused on calling forth the boss, saying, "Here goes nothing. The boss, the boss." He started accumulating chakra and storing it until he thought it was appropriate. When Jiraiya sensed the amount increasing, his eyes widened. Jiraiya yelled, "Whoa whoa, that's enough," with a trace of fear in his voice. Biting his thumb, Naruto opened his eyes and let the blood flow again. With a cry, "Kachiyose no Jutsu," his feet seemed to be raised into the air. The big toad roared, "Jiraiya, you dare summon me? I summoned you, boss." Gamabunta noticed a boy standing on his head when he looked up. "Get lost, brat. Where is Jiraiya?" Naruto sat on the toad's head, exhausted from calling forth the boss. He scowled at the boss and said, "Note to self, use the fox's chakra next time." He searched for Jiraiya and said, "I really did summon you in. I don't know where Arrow Sennin is, but if we find him, he'll tell you that I really did summon you." "Arrow Sennin?" Naruto nodded his head, "Yeah." Naruto did his best to imitate his sensei when he said to the boss, "You know, the perverted one." Gamabunta let out a loud laugh. "I like your sense of humor, kid. Tell you what, if you can stand on my head without falling, I will consider you to call on me in the future." "Like a test?" inquired Naruto. Gamabunta gave an eye roll. "No, like a ticket, of course a test." Naruto frowned as he sensed the toad's sarcasm. "Bring it." Gamabunta grinned. "It's going to be enjoyable." Jiraiya observed his young apprentice attempting to remain on Gamabunta from a distance. Seeing these young girls play in the waterfall was a great excuse. As he continued to look through his telescope and take notes, Jiraiya drooled. He muttered, "Oh yeah. Just like that," and carried on taking notes. He was unaware that Gamabunta was getting ready for the last leap. The boy hasn't moved in more than 20 minutes. Gamabunta stiffened and leapt into the air, saying, "I'll give you credit, kid. No one besides the fourth ever stood on me for this long." As gravity set in, Naruto felt the pressure of the atmosphere hitting him. He started slipping as they started to fall. He made sure he was sticking by instantly applying more chakra to his arms and feet. There was a tremendous tremor as they landed, and the girls immediately dispersed. Feeling defeated, Jiraiya cried a little. "Damn you, Gaki!" exclaimed the man. When Gamabunta heard the scream, he jumped again, this time in the direction of the voice. Jiraiya kept crying, oblivious to the shadowy darkness surrounding him. He saw enormous web feet approaching him when he looked up. He attempted to flee but was unsuccessful. Now he was trapped beneath the toad's feet. The boss croaked, "Jiraiya, I finally found you." There were muffling noises beneath his foot. Dizzy, Naruto whirled around. After he tripped and fell, he landed safely atop Jiraiya. "What's your name, boy?" Someone else said, "His name is Naruto Pops." Gamakichi landed on Naruto's head after jumping. "I like this one, Pops. He gave me candy." To Gamabunta's surprise, his son was perched atop the boy's head. "Gamakichi, what are you doing here?" Gamakichi tapped Naruto on the head and said, "He summoned me." Jiraiya screamed in agony as Gamabunta put a little more pressure on her, saying, "You pass, brat. You may call on me when you need assistance, but as for you, Jiraiya." The teacher and student were left to consider this exercise after both toads vanished. "Next time we meet, I'll bash your head in. Let's go home, Gamakichi." After 5 minutes as he massaged his back, Jiraiya muttered, "Ungrateful toads." Naruto sat on a rock and asked, "So what do I do now?" with a bored expression. "What stage are you on with the Rasengan?" Naruto gave a shrug. He made a flawless Rasengan and held out one hand, saying, "Whatever stage this is. Practice until you can do it with both hands." Naruto shot back, "You can't even do it yourself. Are you training to be like me or training to surpass me?" Naruto grinned. "To surpass you." Jiraiya kicked Naruto off the rock and sent him to the ground, face down, saying, "Then get to it." In search of the next hot springs, Jiraiya vanished in a cloud of smoke. 7 p.m. Holy shish. It took an eternity to get out of that forest. Naruto walked back into town slowly, holding himself up with a stick. He was fortunate that all of that training had not worn him out. It was absurd how much was needed to call forth Gamabunta. It consumed almost 2/3 of his chakra reserves, which was significant given that he was the endurance freak. A familiar woman was inside a nearby restaurant when Naruto passed by. He grinned. At last, he had the answers. For example, Anko Mitarashi purred, "Ah, the lovely dangos. What an odd kunoichi she was. She could eat dangos until the end of time. She never ate anything else." A soft voice asked, "Got room for one more?" Anko snarled. She and her priceless dangos would only be interrupted by an idiot. She was shocked to see the blonde child from the test when she turned around. She looked at the boy, who was a complete mess and uninteresting, and said, "Oh, it's you. Go away." Naruto merely grinned. He was hungry, and the smell was too alluring. "Mind if I join you, Anko-san?" The kunoichi quickly answered, "No." When the dangos were around, she disliked being around strange people. Naruto asked courteously, "Waiter, could I get some service here?" A number of waiters glanced at him and ignored his request, going about their work. Naruto just grinned, but it hurt a lot on the inside. These careless individuals were too obstinate to alter their behavior. Naruto lowered his head and said, "Oh well." His stomach rumbled. He muttered in a low voice, "There's always ramen." Anko let out a sigh. She held up a stick and said, "Here." Anko Mitarashi most likely shared her dangos with no one else at this time. Naruto enthusiastically agreed. "Thank you." He munched on it rapidly, finishing it in a single bite. "No. No. No." Anko seized the boy and gave him a gentle shake. She showed the boy how to properly eat a fine cuisine by saying, "Eating dango is an art. You eat it one at a time. Like this." With a nod of her head, she gave the boy another stick and told him to try again. Naruto chuckled. "Are you sure, Anko-san? I'm intruding on your meal." "Eat it, brat," was her hasty response. She was responsible for teaching people the proper way to eat dangos. Every time she witnessed an amateur eating it, it made her go crazy. Following his teacher's example, Naruto ate each one individually. Naruto asked a little, "So where's Orochimaru, Anko-san?" The question caused Anko to bat her eye. She put her arms around Naruto and whispered in his ears, "Why do you want to know?" As her arms slowly moved across his chest, Naruto felt the hot breath tickle his ear. "Are you curious about me? About my past?" she asked. Naruto drew Anko nearer to him by putting his free around her waist. He cocked his head to look her in the eye. Leaning into her face and closely examining her features, he said, "I'm always curious about things." The two were less than 4 inches apart. "I'm curious about people who stand out. Unique, if you must say." Lips barely coming into contact. Leaning closer, Naruto gazed into her eyes while pressing his forehead against hers. In her eyes, he saw surprise and lust. Gazing intently into her eyes, Naruto whispered, "Where is he, Anko-san?" Anko managed to respond, I don't know. Forget him. What about us?" She moved her hands up his chest. He had a toned chest, which surprised her. His body didn't feel like a 12-year-old's, even for a genin. It had the feel of a young adult. "There's always later for us. What are you to him, Anko-san?" "I was," she said, losing herself in his blue eyes. She found herself enthralled with the sea as she gazed into it. Her hands moved to his face, drawing their faces closer and closer together as she said, "His apprentice, I left him a long time ago." Naruto stepped aside and jolted Anko out of her reverie, saying, "Thank you for the meal, Anko-san." Naruto left after dropping some money to cover the cost of the meal. Reflecting on what had just transpired, Anko watched the genin leave the restaurant. It seemed as though she was totally enchanted by him and powerless to fight him. Her lips were licked. She wasn't happy with the flair this boy possessed. She required more. Satisfied with his responses, Naruto left the restaurant. He entered with a few inquiries and left with a satisfying meal and responses. She and Orochimaru are not related. That's excellent. I don't have to kill her anymore. The following day Naruto wandered around thinking, I wonder where Kakashi-sensei is. He has already visited the bookstore, his home, the Hokage Tower, the hot springs, and all of his sensei's favorite spots. He eventually gave up and made his way to the training grounds for yet another grueling day of instruction. Training with 1,000 clones really helped him get it down. He noticed Team 10 partially training as he passed Training Grounds 5. He went over and decided to ask their sensei if he had seen his. Excuse me, Asuma-san? Team 10 paused their task and turned to face their surprise guest. A puff of Asuma's cigarette was taken. What can I do for you, Uzumaki-san? Have you seen Kakashi? Sensei? The elder Junin gave a head nod. He took the Uchiha to train for the next part of the exam. With a sigh, Naruto lowered his head. I see. Curious about the boy, Ino said. Hey Shika. Why would Asuma Sensei call him Uzumaki-san? In an attempt to attract Shikamaru's attention, she gave him a slap on the arm. He returned his focus to the shogi board, considering his next move, and said, You are such a bothersome Ino. If you had taken a break from pursuing Sasuke, you would know that Naruto is highly respected by the Hokage. Can you tell me about the match between Hinata and Neji? Asuma's eyebrow went up. Naruto stood there in silence, not responding to the question, Are you thinking about getting revenge? Feeling the blood return to his legs, Asuma got to his feet. Walk with me. You can call me Naruto. Asuma gave a nod. The rest of you are to go against Shikamaru in a 2 versus 1 match. I want to see him bleeding all over by the time I get back. Shikamaru's eyes grew wide. So troublesome. He saw Ino rush in his direction. He rolled back just in time to avoid the heel drop after kicking away from the board. Asuma and Naruto left the training grounds as Team 10 continued their training. It took a long time for Asuma to find the right words. Revenge isn't everything, Naruto. He could see the boy's eyes were filled with hatred. He would eventually destroy himself if he let the boy become consumed by his hatred and desire for vengeance. There is a history between Neji and Hinata. Wondering what the older man was talking about, Naruto turned to face him. What about history was so significant that he would kill her for it? Hinata is considered the heir to the Hyuga clan while Neji was doomed to the life of serving her. 2 different branches of power inside one main house. I'm sure you can see where this is going, right, Naruto? The boy gave a head nod. Why was he condemned to this? The two kept walking in silence while gazing into the trees, saying, That's how fate plays her cards. Naruto bounded off, leaving the Junin to make the arduous journey back alone. Thank you. 1 week remains after 3 weeks. Perspiration trickled down Naruto's head as he sat against a tree. He grinned to himself. In fact, he completed it. He finally got it down after 3 weeks of trying. He has 1 week to brush up on the fundamentals and the other 2 weeks to work on his timing. Tiny blue balls began to form on each of his outstretched palms until he closed them, letting the energy out. Time was drawing near. During this time, his friend would always arrive. They became friends, but he was unaware of it. A loud voice shouted, Naruto, where are you hiding? Stop playing around. Naruto grinned. The enjoyable part was always this. To let her know he was there, he stood up and moved into her line of sight. Hey there, Ino. Ino turned to face the boy again. There you are. Did you know how long I was looking for you? Naruto gave a small laugh. Ino started to babble about her day, saying, Sorry, I was training. Guess I lost track of time. She would come and tell him about her day before they started training. That was how it always went. Rewind, he only used rubber balls and water balloons to retrain himself a week ago. Although it didn't help his wallet, the use of clones was also very beneficial. The clouds were passing by while he was lying on the ground, gazing at them, and then she approached him. Why are you acting like Shikamaru, Naruto? She inquired. He stopped staring at the clouds and cocked his head slightly to look at her as if her voice had an impact on him. His response was, because clouds are relaxing. He had no idea how it had happened, but the next thing he knew, she was standing next to him, staring at clouds. I don't see how you could waste time doing this. Because clouds are relaxing, Ino snarled. Are you mocking me? Naruto chuckled. Sitting in silence, the two gazed into the clouds. No, but that's my answer. The first to break the silence was Naruto. So how is Hinata? She's fine, Naruto. Neji was stopped before he could finish his attack. MMHMM. Are you still going to get revenge? It was the word that Naruto found himself considering. Retaliation. It's hard to get go of the past. It doesn't concern you. What happens between them stays between them. You don't have to carry the burdens of everyone around you. The reply came out of nowhere. He didn't think she would get it. He sat up, already feeling rejuvenated, and said, Justice is blind, Ino. If I have the power to change it, I would. Ino was left alone when he left. She would not comprehend. Naruto reflected, I don't expect her to. He supposedly grew up in this village, but it was only a temporary residence. Without warning, a voice said, I thought we were training. Naruto turned around slowly, but he made a mistake. He was elbowed in the gut by Ino, who was already ahead of him. Naruto grinned as he stumbled backward. Let's go then. Both were worn out but felt a sense of accomplishment as they continued to spar until nightfall. This marked the beginning of their blossoming friendship. Naruto never once inquired as to why she had come. All he could do was be happy he did. End of flashback. The day of the Chunin exams, last round. Are you ready, Naruto? The blonde answered. I was born ready. He examined himself. He received some new clothes from his Nichan. They weren't orange, but they weren't bad, he had to admit. Smooth but easy on the eyes, he brushed over the clan symbol on his shirt. The clan's emblem was distinctive. It was a yin-yang symbol, with black and white standing for good and evil. It was the clan he was a member of. Everyone will be watching, Naruto. They have high expectations of you. Don't disappoint them. The boy, feeling a little anxious, inhaled deeply and said, I won't, arrow. Senin. Jiraiya kept an eye on the boy, whom he regarded as his grandson. Naruto, you've come a long way. Naruto kept stretching, occasionally working with the tenro. He gripped the sword firmly, sensing its powerful exterior, saying, I will make you proud. It's been a long time, Gensai. Sensei. In his apartment, a loud voice yelled, Naruto, are you ready yet? Jiraiya and Naruto both flinched at the scream. Jiraiya rubbed his temples and said, too early for this Gaki, too early. Okay, Ino. I'm coming, Naruto responded. Jiraiya gave him a head bump. What do you not understand? As he left the apartment and headed for the stadium, Naruto chuckled. In the stadium, Sakura was astounded by the large crowd that had come to watch the match. Whoa, that's a lot of people. That's not surprising. Villagers and ninjas alike turn up today to see who will be their future comrades, their future protectors. Sakura appeared even more astonished. The bug user caught her attention. Wow, Shino, she said. She had never heard him say so much before. Hinata giggled a little, but Shino remained silent. The audience fell silent as they waited for the competitors. Greetings. My name is Genma Shiranui and I will be your examiner for this part of the exam. Will Hyuga Neji and Uzumaki Naruto step forward? Neji showed up beside the examiner in the center of the field. He felt the excitement building inside of him as he closed his eyes. I've already been declared the winner by fate, Uzumaki. Now, everyone was anticipating the second competitor, with some people becoming increasingly anxious while they awaited Naruto. The second contestant is still nowhere to be seen after a minute. A minute turned into 2, and 2 minutes into 4. People started whispering to each other. The people in the village were pondering. Was the demon able to escape? All they could hope for was that he did. Sakura glanced around, but she couldn't find Naruto. Other individuals were also absent. Ino and Sasuke weren't present. As she watched something come up the stairs, she caught a glimpse of blonde Ino. Pig, have you seen Naruto? Startled to see everyone ogling her, Ino approached. She lied and said, no, I haven't seen him. She sat down when she noticed a vacant seat next to Sakura. Again, the examiner yelled, is Naruto Uzumaki here? Stand of the Hokage, the Kazekage asked, where is your second contestant Hokage? Sama. His only response was, he will be here. Jiraiya, where is the boy? Jiraiya gave a shrug. He was certain that the boy had left before him, so he said, he should have been here by now. Perhaps he had an accident. He began looking through the crowds to see if anyone he knew was there. After saying, pardon me, Hokage. Sama. I have some things to take care of. Jiraiya vanished in a cloud of smoke. The rookies were a little startled by Jiraiya's arrival as he appeared beside them. "None of you seen Naruto?" he inquired of his companions. Each of them shook his head. This was not encouraging. This gave him a bad feeling. A frightful, irate voice asked from behind him, "Where is Naruto?" Jiraiya stopped. This was a voice he knew. He hoped he would never see that person again. The rookies looked perplexed as they turned around. The Toad Sannin began to perspire. Oh. Araki. What are you doing there?" she said. This wasn't good. His life was constantly hanging on by a thread whenever he interacted with his lady. Jiraiya started to fear for his life when he heard, "My Otuto invited me here." He had fear in his eyes. The woman threatened, "I swear, if anything happens to him." Jiraiya waved his hands in an attempt to buy himself a little more time. No, don't misunderstand Araki. I was just with Naruto this morning." He regretted not updating his will. Sakura interrupted, asking, "Excuse me, but how do you know Naruto?" Naruto never mentioned his family, so she figured he was an orphan. Araki gave the girl a look. Astonished to see someone like her as Naruto's older sister, everyone gasped when she said, "My name is Araki Tenjin, I'm Naruto's older sister." She didn't appear to be that elderly. Kiba said, "Are you sure? You look nothing like him, and you don't have a familiar scent like Naruto." Araki chuckled. "I'm not related to him by blood, but I consider him my younger brother." Jiraiya swallowed. As long as Naruto appeared, he was on thin ice for the time being, but if he is disqualified, nothing, not even hell, can save him from this woman's wrath. A lovely voice said, "Excuse me Jiraiya-san. We were wondering if you remembered us." Immediately forgetting his fears, Jiraiya turned around and smiled broadly at the enigmatic voice. He scowled at what he saw before becoming alarmed. sh. Shizuka. God damn it. Standing beside him were two of the most dreaded women he had ever seen and wished to never see again. He was able to ask, "How are you doing?" Araki saved Jiraiya from his imminent doom for the moment by asking, Shizuka-san. How have you been? It's been a while." To put it mildly, the Sannin's eyes widened in surprise. They really know one another? This wasn't good, I see. The friendship between these two women was the only thing worse than them. They were still talking like old friends, and he felt his life slipping away. He prayed to the gods that Naruto was truly present while he sobbed in his head. Kiba inquired as courteously as he could, "You know Naruto as well?" Shizuka gave him a smile. She scowled at Jiraiya and said, "Yes, I do, dear. We met Naruto a while back when he was just an innocent boy. And he still better be." Jiraiya nodded rapidly. He'd done a lot of things for us on his travels and we are entirely grateful. "Mother, I don't see Naruto anywhere." Suddenly a girl came up. "This is my daughter Hikaru." Hikaru welcomed them with a wave. She recognized the perverted hermit and said, "Hello Ero, Sennin." He gestured to her with his fingers, saying, "Gah, not you too." Both women scowled at his impolite demeanor. In an attempt to prolong his already brief stay here, Jiraiya swiftly withdrew his finger. Everyone turned to face Ino, who was still seated, and said, "Don't worry, Naruto will definitely be here." Sakura inquired, "How do you know that?" In an attempt to find out what was strange about her friend, she examined her. After saying, "I just do forehead," Ino sat down and waited in silence. Taking the hint, everyone sat down to await the man of the hour. In the field below, Neji calmly said, "Examiner, just declare me the winner, he won't show up." Genma gave a snort. High and mighty already. He would have replaced Naruto Uzumaki if he hadn't been an examiner here. He turned to face the audience and observed their reactions as he said, "Naruto Uzumaki has 1 minute to appear. If he does not, he will be disqualified. Viewers, if he doesn't show up Jiraiya, I swear to God your legacy dies right here," Araki said. With a shudder, Jiraiya kept praying. He was already on his knees, pleading with the gods to have pity on his soul, saying, "For the love of God Gaki, please show up. Return to the field." Genma counted to 60 slowly, and that was it. "I hereby declare," Genma said just as Neji was about to be proclaimed the victor. Neji and Genma narrowly avoided being hit by a massive sword that descended from the sky. Astonished by the enormous sword, everyone fell silent. From the sword's hilt came a voice that said, "Sorry. Am I late? I got lost on the path of life." Everybody looked for the figure in the dust. Jiraiya exclaimed, "Naruto." Glad to see that he had made it safely. His future once again began to appear bright. Naruto's focus shifted to the individuals yelling at him. He bowed to them apologetically and then waved, saying, "Sorry I'm late. I had some things to take care of first." Araki yelled, "You and me later, brat." Naruto shuddered at the idea. "And I recently left the hospital." He leapt from the enormous sword and saw it vanish. "Sorry. I had a meeting with my boss." Genma gave him a wary glance and then shrugged. He leapt aside instantly, allowing the two young boys to engage in combat. "The match between Naruto and Neji will now begin," he exclaimed. Viewers, Jiraiya knew what that sword was. Missing it wasn't difficult. He had seen it numerous times before. "That's where he went, then. Naruto is here. He was with you." "What was that huge sword arrow?" "Sennin," he replied quietly, "the sword of the boss Hikaru." He grinned. This match was going to be fantastic. "The field," Neji said icily, "it would have been wiser to stay away from Uzumaki." Ignoring the other boy, Naruto stretched his arms and then his neck muscles. Neji yelled, "You think this is a joke?" He grabbed a kunai and hurled it towards Naruto. Just in time to stop the kunai, Naruto raised his finger. When the kunai reached the tip of his finger, no blood was produced. He entertained the crowd by slowly balancing the kunai on his finger and saying, "Are you always this hot-headed? Slow down and enjoy the clouds. Life will pass you by if you are always on the go." "What do you know about my life?" Neji screamed as he hurried in with the intention of finishing the match abruptly. Pretenders who believe they are all that are the only thing he detested more than pretenders themselves. Naruto observed Neji's increasing proximity. He smiled and said, "I know you had a rough life." When Neji's hand touched Naruto's chest, his eyes were filled with surprise. Naruto began to cough up blood. "Revenge isn't the way to go. I learned it the hard way." Neji looked at the boy in dismay and asked, "Why? Why didn't you dodge it?" Naruto yanked the Hite-8 off Neji's head, revealing the branch seal, and said, "Because then, you would be running away from that." After swiftly grabbing the boy by the shirt and throwing him aside, Neji went to the Hite-8 and replaced it. "I am not running away. I am embracing my destiny. It is my destiny to change this, and fate has already declared me the winner when you were matched up with me." After coughing once more, Naruto burst out laughing. With a smile on his face, he slowly stood up and said, "My seal is worse than yours, Neji." The genius of Hyuga swiftly activated his bloodline, which cursed him for life, and said, "Byakugan." Neji exclaimed, "How the hell are you standing up?" after witnessing something so unbelievable. His opponent was still upright after taking a direct hit to the chest. "Fate isn't determined by birth. Destiny is not written in stone. We are each our own person," replied Naruto. As Neji gazed at the floor, he noticed a shadow approaching. He glanced up quickly and saw another Naruto approaching. As the Naruto he believed to be real vanished, leaving the crowd stunned, he rolled backwards to avoid the attack. Naruto waited for Neji to stand up and said, "Come Neji. Let me show you how I defied destiny." As he slowly stood up, Neji spat out, "Defy destiny? Don't be a fool. No one can defy their destiny." Neji rushed in with the intention of demonstrating to this rookie what it meant to have destiny behind them. "Your destiny was predetermined before you were even born. Don't preach as if you were some kind of expert on it." "Sheer Hyuga ignorance," Naruto responded, avoiding Neji's swift palm strike. "Always so mighty." Neji kept accelerating in an attempt to hit Naruto, saying, "Destiny has already dealt me the winning hand." When he noticed an opening on Naruto's left arm, he realized that his window of opportunity had arrived. He was able to seize Naruto's wrist and draw it in his direction before swiftly hitting his shoulder multiple times. Instinctively, Naruto leapt away as a sharp pain shot through his shoulder. Stinging from the pain and unable to focus chakra on it, his left arm dropped to his side. As he observed his opponent grapple with the issue, Neji grinned. "From the way you're looking at your arm, you're probably wondering what happened to it. It's simple really. I just closed your Tenketsu points. It is only a matter of time before I close them all, Uzumaki." He demonstrated his point by lifting his right arm and allowing his left arm to hang loosely by his side. "I know all about your clan taijutsu style and your history, Neji. I don't need both of my arms to defeat you." Neji told Genma, "Examiner. I intend to kill him. People like this are not worthy of life. It would be better for them to pass away now than later." Genma merely gave a shrug. "I will stop you before you do so." The Hyuga said, "You can't possibly defeat me with just one hand. It didn't know. One-handed fighters are never going to be as strong as two-handed fighters." The reasoning was straightforward. Perfect. Naruto grabbed a scroll behind his back and asked, "What about now?" Intrigued by the scroll, Neji's eyebrows went up a little. As Naruto observed Neji's curiosity, he grinned. Naruto threw the scroll open and wiped his blood on it after biting his thumb and letting the blood spill out. Just watch. A very graceful sword emerged as the scroll vanished. Grinning, Naruto gripped the sword firmly in his free hand. He extended the sword to give Neji a clear view of it and said, "I would like to introduce you to Tenro." The gift that would carry on his master's legacy was the final one he ever received from him. "That sword won't beat me." As Neji watched Naruto vanish before him, his eyes grew wide. "Are you sure?" he asked. His senses went into overdrive, yelling for peril. Despite using the Byakugan, he was unable to see Naruto's location. "It's impossible. He's using his weights at Lee's pace." He saw a flash of metal, instinctively swerving to one side and narrowly avoiding the sword blow. Naruto stood with the sword on his shoulders and said, "So the rumors are true. The Byakugan truly does have full vision." He stabbed the sword into the ground and raised both arms in preparation for a jutsu move, saying, "No matter. I'll crush you." Neji mocked his pitiful effort. "You can't summon chakra with that arm. I already sealed off your tenketsu points." As he started focusing on calling forth chakra, Naruto exclaimed, "Being a genius doesn't mean that you're always right. When you become a genius, you become closed-minded, thinking that you're always right. Well, I got news for you." When Neji noticed a peculiar chakra signature coming out of Naruto's body, he stopped laughing at his pitiful attempt. It wasn't the same shade of blue as everyone else. He had a redder tint. The chakra opened the sealed tenketsu points as it moved from Naruto's stomach into his arms. The cry was, "Kage Bushin no Jutsu," from Naruto. Reopening his tenketsu points with force was painful, but it was worthwhile. His left arm began to come back to life. "What do you think of destiny now, Neji? Do you still believe that destiny is behind you?" Unable to respond, Neji scowled. The reasoning was nonsensical. During combat, a sealed tenketsu point could not be opened again. Naruto commanded his clones, "Beat him down to the ground, boys." With their individual tenro in hand, they all hurried in. As the clones drew nearer, Neji watched. He could feel his excitement burning as he said, "I will show everyone why I was given the title of genius in the Hyuga clan." All of the training he had forced himself to do, all of the blood and sweat he had lost, had been for this moment. To demonstrate to everyone that he was more than a mere branch member. He was an individual. When Naruto felt his sword make contact with something, he smiled a little, but to his surprise, he was unable to push the weapon any farther. No, but that wasn't all. Neji managed to halt the attack from all of his clones as well. Naruto was flung back with force the next thing he knew. He sensed his clones hitting the ground and vanishing one by one. Surprised by that attack, Naruto slowly stood up. Neji appeared to be in perfect health as he stood there. Determined to learn the truth, Naruto snarled and charged forward once more. Shiranui.Ryu. Satsujin Ken. Suzaku, was Naruto's whisper as he started to perform the move. Naruto saw Neji move slightly differently, as if he were phasing in and out, but that was impossible, just as he was about to attack. Then he realized it was the cause of Neji's previous ability to fend off his attack. Hakesho Kaden. Neji declared with assurance as he whirled around and knocked Naruto back with force. "The Kaden is my ultimate defense. It repels any attack coming towards me from a full 360 degrees angle. There is no way you can defeat me." As he stood back up, Naruto remarked, "Then you oblivious don't know me." His body was hurting, but fortunately for the fox, his wounds were already getting better. "I'm a stubborn fool who just won't quit." Naruto exploded, putting the chakra into his feet to give himself just a little more strength. He had already witnessed the assault twice. The user was shielded from harm by the chakra spinning force field, but he could beat Neji to the ground if he could reach him before he began spinning. With the Tenro now nearly touching the ground, Naruto slightly lowered his sword stance. Debris was raised from the ground as Naruto ran and dug the sword into the ground. He swung his sword, pelting Neji with clods of dirt and rocks. Shiranui.Ryu. Tsuchi Batsu. He was observing the movement on Neji's feet rather than the attack. Before Neji could launch his counterattack, he needed to arrive. Neji answered, "I already told you, it's useless." Instead, sometimes humiliating stubborn idiots by beating them to the ground is the best way to get them to learn from their mistakes. He became aware that something was strange when his eye twitched. He glanced around the area quickly and saw that Naruto was nowhere to be found. He was still being approached by the Tsuchibatsu, but where was Naruto? Neji tightened his jaw. No matter where he was, the threat was more immediate. Kai. Neji started to criticize his technique again. Naruto interrupted Neji's technique by appearing next to him and saying, "I don't think so." To stop Neji from spinning, he placed his leg in front of his right heel and his arm around his throat. "I already seen that technique twice. Why don't you show me something new? There's no way you can spin if I'm holding on to you," said Naruto. Based on Naruto's shocked expression, Neji deduced that this was one fact Naruto had neglected to research. Naive fool. "I can exert chakra from all over my body." Neji started to spin, pulling Naruto with her. "Kaden," exclaimed Neji. Viewers, a tiny voice said, "Father, isn't that your Kaden?" Hiashi's eyes widened in surprise as he stood up. In response, the stoic man said, yes it is." He was obviously interested in the match and kept watching it. To think that a branch member has surpassed a main branch. Watch your cousin carefully, Hanabi. He is the person who we claim to be the genius of the Hyuga clan. Hanabi gave a nod. Her eyes shifted to observe her cousin Neji. Araki yelled, "What are you doing, Naruto?" She was at the poles already, threatening to dash out into the field to give him a reality check. Jiraiya screamed, "No, Araki," and pushed the woman away. "He can handle it himself." The field, by the time Naruto was flung back, his head was already spinning. He tried to clear his mind by closing his eyes. Feeling the pain from that last attack, he moaned as he stood up painfully. His hands were slipping from the sword, and he was having trouble holding himself up. Neji glared at Naruto as she stood there. He had underestimated this boy, it was true, but it was almost impossible for Kaden to stand up from a close distance. Lee couldn't even get to his feet. "You have my respect, Uzumaki. You've taken 3 Kadens and a normal person would have been dead by now, but the match still goes to me." Naruto smiled as he opened his eyes. The match isn't over. He inhaled deeply and briefly in an attempt to gather himself. Holding his sword in front of him, he said, "Allow me to show you my newest technique." He held up 2 fingers to the blade and slowly moved them toward the end of the sword, saying, "This is in memory of my late sensei, Gensai Kawakami, and I dedicate this technique to him." Neji noticed that the sword had subtle signs of chakra embedded in it. Putting chakra into that sword won't cut through this defense. Just watch. Naruto experienced the same tingling sensation from the sword as before he used this new technique. He lifted his sword and aimed it at Neji. Shiranui.Ryu. Kawaki style. Raiko Sudareki. The sword lit up brightly, creating the impression that the lightning god had materialized from inside it. "This isn't a normal technique, Neji." Naruto swung at Neji to demonstrate the purpose of this technique. Uncertain of what the peculiar method could accomplish, Neji stood there. Something struck him hard a second later, causing him to fall to his knees. The Hyuga screamed, "Arg!" He couldn't see it, but something just struck him. Something was shocking his body, but he was unable to identify what it was. Viewers, WH. "What was that?" exclaimed Araki. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. She snatched Jiraiya by his clothing and drew him toward her, saying, "Better answer me, you pervert." Impressed by the level that Naruto was displaying, Jiraiya rubbed his chin and said, "If I had to guess, Naruto combined a lightning jutsu with the sword. Incredible." The field Neji was suffering from the effects of the attack and was breathing heavily. He looked at Naruto, who was merely standing there, taunting him to get up, saying, "I couldn't even see it." Naruto swung the sword once more with the intention of ending the battle. They say lightning travels as fast as light. There is no way to know when lightning will strike. There was simply nothing for Neji to see. Despite having his Byakugan activated, he was unable to see. He ultimately just rolled from side to side, but when he felt a shock to his leg, he fell to his knees. "I ask you again. Forfeit or I will fry you."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.